There may be a house in New Orleans, but on the corner of 16th Street in Georgetown, you like something much bigger. It's known as the Indianapolis Motor Speedway, and it is the cathedral of speed, a mecca in terms of motor racing history and how you can push a driver and a machine like no other. They've been doing this here since 1909, and since 1911, it came up with a challenge. What would happen if we made drivers do 500 miles to see who is the best? Because yes, whilst there might be endurance racing, that will see how a machine can last over 24 hours, and Grand Prix over shorter distances, this is the perfect mix of speed, driver skill, and having lady luck and your car on your side. So welcome to Indianapolis one more time as we are getting ready for the Apex Infotech Indianapolis 500, and it is next here on RaceSpotTV, streaming live on Racing Live.
Watch Ernie, go, go, go. All right, car right, car right, car right. Watch him, jam it. Oh! Get ready. Dude, more heads up than that. Jeez.
Right on the back wing. Can he make it happen?
Yes! Yes! Push like hell. We gotta stay in front of these guys.
Drivers on the push to pass. Contact in the pit lane.
All right, 60. Let that eagle fly. What do I do? What happened? Push here. Push hard. Let's go get this guy. All right, outside. We're behind you. Pedal. Clear outside. Good job. Just spun behind you. I don't know if you got him or not.
He got out of it so hard. Look at these guys are all over the back.
Full throttle.
IndyCar. The in and out lap. What's next?
Come and get the checkers, big boy. Oh, baby, that was good. He hit me. Inside, inside, outside, inside, outside.
2017 Verizon IndyCar Series. See what's next.
Welcome to the Indianapolis Motor Speedway, and welcome to coverage of the Apex Infotech Indianapolis 500. There's not much more we can really say than welcome to the greatest racetrack in the world, Indianapolis Motor Speedway. It's a chilly day out there today, 69 degrees Fahrenheit, humidity 35%. We're racing for 200 laps, 800 corners, 500 miles. And oh yeah, in a lot of these races, it does come down to fuel. It does come down to who's got the nerve at the end of this murder race. And Cisco, worth noting that none of these races I've ever commentated, none of the 7 iRacing Indianapolis 500s that have been broadcasted on iRacing Live have ever ended under yellow.
No, and if we look at the race 1 year ago, it was a fantastic finish. They had a caution which forced the 6-lap dash to the finish. 4 cars fought for the lead, but it was Tim Holgate who beat pole sitter Chris Demerit by 33 1/1000ths of a second to get the win at Indy. But this year, Will, we've seen drivers rise to the top. But like we said, this is Indianapolis. If you are in the field, you want to win this race. The race on May 28th, it might be the crown jewel of motorsports, but for the drivers on that track today, this is their crown jewel, and they will do whatever it takes to win.
Indeed so, as we've got 28 drivers, Randy, who are looking to give themselves that challenge. While Bradley Walters, in terms of qualifying, has got himself a substantial advantage over anyone else. Get that. P number 2 through to P number 5 is separated by 2 100ths of a second, but Bradley Walters is 8 100ths faster than anyone else.
Bradley's been quick all week. On the run-up to the iRacing Indy 500, there's been some hosted sessions. Some people have been putting up basically some practice races for people to use, and Bradley has been one of the quickest drivers in qualifying in every single one of those sessions. 800ths of a second, it doesn't sound like it a lot, but considering how long this car has been out, Will, and how refined a lot of the setup and strategy has gotten to on this DW12, that is a substantial amount of speed.
Oh, yeah, completely agree with that one, because you're right, we are at the end of the life of the Dallara DW12 in terms of its involvement in IndyCar racing. We've had it for a good number of years, and we saw it, Randy, with the IRA 5. By the time that the Dallara DW12 came out, we weren't flying over tenths of a second, we weren't even flying over hundredths of a second. You call it a good day if you find 2 1,000ths.
Actually, I have a perfect quote about this. I mean, I was hanging out with the TeamSpeak with Christopher Demerit the other day, and he said that his teammate Brandon Treno told a story about a month or so ago. He's doing some testing here at Indianapolis. He sent Chris a text message. He said, "It's been a good day. I found 2,000ths at Indy."
I mean, that's simply it. And that's the thing. Indianapolis, in terms of the race, these days in the Dallara DW12, Cisco, it's got a lot more important to manage the track. And yes, whilst qualifying therefore isn't as important as it was 10, 15 years ago. And of course, let's not forget that horrific qualifying. It's Christopher beat this, by the way, up into P number 2. We can't forget what happened in 1995 with Penske. And qualifying isn't as important as it used to be, but being there in the mix and being out front early sends a statement to competitors.
Yeah, absolutely. And if you're starting in the back of the pack, you're going to have to work your way up to the front, be it strategy or what have you. But as Randy talked about, the margin between these cars, at least on race pace, is so very close for these guys that they have to expel so much more effort to be able to get up to the front that generally by the time they get there, they're either too low on gas or the tires have been used up. So, Will, for these guys, qualifying not as important, but it's still going to be drain on resources and it's going to be drain on that driver. It's mentally tasking if you're going to start in the middle of this pack and try and get to the front.
Yeah, and at some point over this race, we talk about how qualifying here is different to what will be the case in the 8th annual iRacing Indianapolis 500. We are back home again in Indiana, and that means one thing, as Marco Aurelio Brazil moves up to 3rd. It wouldn't be Indy without our good friend, Mr. Jim Neighbors.
Back home again in Indiana, and it seems that I can see the gleaming candlelight still burning bright through the sycamores for me. The new moon hay sends all its fragrance through the fields I used to roam. When I dream about the moonlight on the Wabash, how I long
Power of the internet, of course. Even though Jim Neighbors hasn't done the back home again in Indiana the past couple of years, the good thing about us, Cisco, is it means we get to honor that tradition for a lifetime.
Yeah, absolutely. And a staple mark of the 500 weekend is the singing of Back Home Again in Indiana. And, you know, as someone who has been residing in Indianapolis now for about 3 years and gone to the 500 for 2 of those years, it's a special moment. It's a track, a 2.5 mile track goes deathly silent while that song plays. The only other time it does that is for the national anthem, but that's how important these traditions are to the state of Indiana and to the city of Indianapolis. This is what the 500 means to us.
And with qualifying over, it's now time to run yourself through your starting grid for this, the Apex Infotech Indianapolis 500. It's locals who wrap up the front row of the grid. Bradley Walters and Christopher Peters on that front row, separated in the end only by about 3/100ths of a second. Marco Brazil in 3rd place. Tim Holgate, he's a previous winner at Indianapolis. He rolls off in P number 4. Christian Steele in P number 5, but a circle around him he'll be worth thinking about, as well as the next 2 drivers, Troy Eddy and Brandon Troyes. They will be 6th and 7th respectively. Andrew Kinsella will roll off on the outside of that 4th row of the grid, and then we cycle back. Andreas Eek in 9th, and Adam Dock rounds out your top 10. Vic Cordell, Tim Doyle 11th and 12th. As we get the remainder of the results there somehow up on your screen from qualifying. There we are. Joe Bryant, Niles Anderson 13th. Chris Stoneford, Joe Flanagan 15th, 16th place. Vinicius Mariga, Diego Perez, Vinicius Cortadello, and Alan Moria lead a 4-car Brazilian contingent in number 17 through 20. And then, after that, you've got another Brazilian driver, Adriano Paporti, Dan Lien, Jose Gotti, Jose Crescente, Wagner Pagado, Robert Gort, Matt Cook, and Tony Schoen don't qualify here today. They may well take the start of this event. Bradley Walters, Christopher Peters out front. That is going to be a very interesting one here this evening, Randy.
This is going to be fantastic. Both of those drivers a good chunk of speed quicker than the rest of the field. Only 2 cars of the 28 today that have gotten themselves into the 6s. Everyone else in the 7s are slower. So that's a very, very big advantage. Couple drivers to see starting from the back. Tony Schoen choosing to not put in a qualifying time. By the looks of things, Matt Cook might start this from the pit lane. He has not taken the grid.
Yeah, also not taking the grid here today. Actually, no, he's the only driver not taking the grid. Well, Bulgaria is actually the start of this race. On the grid, it's a 2-wide start, not a 3-wide start here. There will be a 3-wide start in the Classic IndyCar Series. Indianapolis 500, a 1 week today here on RaceSpotTV and on iRacing Live. And we say it, and we mean it. No one does Indy like RaceSpotTV. And of course, we are the official host of the 2017 Indianapolis 500, iRacing Indianapolis 500. That'll be on iRacing Live. And we're counting down the days to the greatest spectacle in sim racing. So welcome then to Indianapolis. Let's get these engines revving and let's bring you to the start of this, the Apex Infotech Indianapolis 500 with a little bit of RaceSpotTV fan immersion.
Yeah, absolutely. The leader out to a huge lead. Bradley Walters in that 56. Commanding lead about 3 or 4 car lengths back to him is Marco Aro Brazil, and he's holding down that second spot. But Christopher Peters got a great run through 1 and 2 right on the rear gearbox. He comes through corner number 2. Great run onto the backstretch.
But that was a good move by Marco Aurelio Brazil, and it looks like, again, he's going to go to the inside of Bradley Peters into corner number 3. Let's see if he's able to get the job done. Yes, he is. Actually, no, he's not clear quite yet. Going to be momentarily side by side, but he should be able to get it into 4. Let's see, though. Can Bradley Walters work the draft? He's going to get a big run coming out of corner number 4. Will Brazil be able to lead lap number 3? I can hear you.
So there we are, Tim Holgate, apologies there. A couple of microphone issues at the start of that one, but Tim Holgate has worked himself up into P number 2 right now. Bradley Walters leads this motor race, but it's worth noting the driver that started on the outside of that front row has fallen down to P number 7 right now, Cisco.
Yeah, the Menards, Delara, not terribly happy right now for Peters. You see him fall back. It looks like maybe just not happy handling the aero right now. He's fallen off that lead pack. He kind of sits between a couple packs of cars. We see this pack kind of formed up behind him of Troy Eddy sitting in 9th position right now. He leads that second group. You got Adam Dock back there, Tim Doyle. That's kind of your second pack, and you have these stragglers, but Peters goes to the inside of Kinsella there. Kinsella going to maybe give up that position as Peters got a piece of that curve, but able to hold on to it there. But he held on to a car at 200 miles an hour plus.
Yeah, 220, 230 almost miles an hour there. As that battle will continue, Andrew Kinsella will go back down to the inside as they navigate through that first corner once again. And one of the things that people don't always understand here, Cisco, is that turn 1, it is so hard for various different reasons. Part of that is the shadow that really does block your vision and your turning point into that first corner.
Yeah, it's very hard to find sight lines as there goes Tim Holgate, the winner from 1 season ago. He's going to go to the inside. Quick work of Bradley Walters by Tim Holgate in the 06. We'll have to see if Walters can get the swap coming back to the start-finish line. What a run he got out of 4 at the line. Walters is going to have him. That is close right there. But you look into turn 1 here. Shadows, boom. Definitely different color of the racing surface there. You lose sight lines. It's harder to find that entry point that you're going to use as a visual cue to turn in. Sometimes you just have to feel it out, and if you want to know how hard turn 1 is, well, just go ask Takuma Sato.
Yeah, of course, the final lap of the 2012 Indianapolis 500, so close to taking that victory away. We've got Kinsella versus Brandon Trost. Brandon Trost is a driver who didn't start when we kind of expected him to do so here, Randy, but he's up to P number 5.
Yeah, he definitely didn't get the qualifying he would have wanted to. Started 7th today, but up to 5th. And here comes that 14, though, of Andrew Kinsella fighting back on the inside, down on the run into corner number 1. And I think Kinsella likely going to be able to get that job done. Now Trost going to slip back behind, get into single file. And this is one of the effects you can really get at this racetrack, Will. I know you're going to probably know it just as well as anybody, but the way the arrow works is that you can make a move, then instantly come back under assault with the draft behind. As we see almost Tim Holgate, Bradley Walters, I thought was going to make that move. And this is actually something I was going to ask you, Will, because Bradley, seemingly, we've seen Brad lose that lead a couple times. We saw Marco pick up the lead, and we've seen Holgate pick up the lead for a couple laps, but no one's really shuffled Bradley Walters out of that lead just yet. He makes a move on Tim Holgate down the front straightaway into corner number 1 again. I think Walters has that car really trimmed out right now, meaning it's going to be very difficult for anyone to get by him and make a pass of stick.
Yeah, and part of that is because of that arrow and the fact that you've got 4 drivers really in this front group. Behind, you've got yourself Andrew Kinsella and Brandon Trost. But the thing is right now, they are 8/10 of a second behind that front group. As there you can see, Kinsella versus Trost, they go at it right now for the number 5 again, and Trost is the beneficiary. But look at that graphic there. Almost 1 second now between Brandon Trost and your lead 4 drivers as Walters versus Holgate again. Holgate leads that lap there, Cisco.
Yeah, well, and as Christopher DeMare points out to us here in the comments, it appears to be for the leaders, at least as of right now, they're content to just swap it back and forth, and that's down to the weather, of course. We talked about at the beginning of this race, a little bit cooler, 66 degrees out there in the air. The track temp's only at 94, but a lot of wind we're having to deal with today. So for these guys, they sit in the draft, they'll get a run, pass the car, pass the car, pass the car, back and forth, and you're just going to be a little bit quicker than that, quicker going that way because, well, because of so much wind. And, you know, it's down to 5 miles an hour, but it's going to keep shifting all day today. Huge factors. Walters goes back by.
Yeah, as Marco Brazil gained 3/10 of a second down one straightaway there as he works on board again. That shows you the impact of the draft right now. But the gap between P4 and P5, that stretched out to over a second for a moment. It's come back down again recently, actually. And that's part of the thing, actually, Cisco. These 4 drivers, if they do work together, they can try and find a way of breaking that. And if we do go green, I say if we do go green, quite often these big races will have a long green flag period. Those 4 drivers, one, the satisfaction of being able to come on towards pit road with a cushion.
Yeah, you're absolutely right, and because of the arrow, it's going to allow them to kind of stick together a little bit. They don't have to worry about getting stuck beside or stuck kind of in no man's land. We're kind of seeing that happen for the guys who kind of were in no man's land. Kinsella, Trost, Peters, Ike, and Doc have all kind of formed up in that second pack, and they all can't get away from each other because, well, that's just how the wind and the aero package works in these cars. And there goes to the inside Trost. He's going to try and get it done on Kinsella. Great pass into turn 3. Kinsella way up the track, but Peter's not close enough to make anything happen.
And that's the thing, Randy. We are going to get excited to that part of this race. We're not going to get excited over every pass that's going to be made because there's going to be record number of passes made. More passes here today than arguably we've seen in the first few rounds of this championship.
Bar none. I mean, it's just what you see here in these Indy cars at this racetrack. This version of the car, this model of the Indy car, and on this racetrack. You see it in real life. I think it was the first couple years that we saw this DW12. They're pushing 60 to 70 lead changes. We've actually seen Holgate and Walters. They've swapped the lead a couple times per lap already. I wouldn't be surprised if we're pushing 20, maybe 15 already for lead changes. We're already only working lap number 13.
Yeah, of course, we classify officially lead changes at the line. I would love to have a look at the graphic. One of the parts of the racing service that not many people pay attention to, Cisco, is that lap chart. You get to see where people are lap on lap. It's almost like a heart rate monitor at the end of this one.
Yeah, it absolutely is. And if you want to bring up another chart people are looking at, we just broke the 240 mile an hour mark. So I said 200 plus. It's more like 240 plus. That is very fast. To put that in perspective, Bugatti Veyron, that was 242. These guys only 2 miles an hour off the fastest production car as of a couple of years ago.
Yeah, and the fastest lap ever turned in a real life Indy car is 236 miles an hour. And that is famous, of course. Now, the track conditions are favourable here. We're not saying this is an unrealistic expectation here, Cisco, but the track conditions, I mean, if we were to be running this type of conditions in the Indy 500 this year, then we'd be having the same story. We've had hot Indy 500s, really, ever since the July DW12 came. I remember the first year I went, actually. It was so hot in 2013, so muggy, that walking around downtown Indianapolis at 9 o'clock at night, it was horrible. Because I went to go and see Places versus the Heat. I can't really say what I want to say about the Miami Heat, of course, because we're on a live broadcast, but you've got to remember that May in Indianapolis, generally, it's a bit muggy. It's a bit humid. Last year, for example, even though it did rain for all of 1 minute, it was a very hot day.
It was a very hot day, and, you know, you had experience with that firsthand, but the last two I've gone to, you know, you find when you're in the infield or you're out in the stands, you're up there just sweating. And we talk about 66 degrees of air. That's at the very bottom scale of what iRacing allows the air temperature to be. if we had air like this in Indy right now, well, the first thing would be I'd probably have a jacket on if I went outside.
Yeah, indeed.
But that's insane to have that in May in Indy because we're in the Midwest. And say what you want about the Midwest in the spring months. I've lived in Chicago for 20 years going on now, but the weather is anything but predictable. But around this time in the Midwest, it's usually pretty hot and, like you said, very muggy.
Robert Gort out of this motor race, our first retiree of the day. We had one non-starter, and that was Matt Cook. Now we've got two people out of this event. Robert Gort, a long spell on pit road. Everyone else is still on track. Stanley H, however, is the last running driver, and there's the graphic. He's 12 seconds behind the race leader. 26 cars separated by 12.5 seconds here, Randy.
Field is definitely very close, and looking back out the front, someone we've been talking about, Will Brandon Trost, has made his way to the front of this field. He now looks side by side with Bradley Walters in turn 1, doesn't make it stick, and he's going to push way up the racetrack on the exit of 2 because of that, but Trost has found his way to the front of this field.
He always said it was only going to be a matter of time. This driver came within 5 miles of winning the 16th Street Indianapolis 500. He's now going to have a driver to his inside. That is Tim Holgate. But Holgate versus Trost at Indy the last couple of years. Randy, I've got to say, you know, let's put Hutu and Kroenke to one side for a moment. Let's put Core Sim Racing and Coanda to one side for a moment. When you come to Indy, this is the battle you want to see because these two drivers are so evenly matched.
Trost is definitely one of the best IndyCar drivers on the ovals, bar none. And Tim Holgate, I'm going to say right now, is probably one of, if not the best all-around IndyCar drivers, bar none, that we've ever seen. Young O might be the one who can take that little notch away from him. But, I mean, like you said, we've seen both of these guys fight it out on all of the ovals for a long time. And we've seen Holgate be one of the best drivers on the road courses for a long time as well. These two have defined IndyCar racing on the iRacing service for several years.
Andres Eep versus Adam Gott going side by side. Andreas is just going to get that pass complete there. Or will he? Because the outside line will come into play. Bit of a wiggle there for Andreas Eep, and that means the Velocidade machine of Adam Gott can hold that outside line into turn number 3. And that's the thing. You've got to set your car up, and what I'm really interested to see here, Cisco, is how that track is going to change over the course of this motor race, because actually it's going to mean the outside lines have become more and more dangerous, and there's one driver that might know what it's like to run the outside line at Indianapolis in turn 4. Don't quite remember who it is though.
Are you talking about a certain National Guard car?
Yeah, I've got that National Guard car actually on my, in front of my TV. Oh gosh, J.R. Hildebrand, lap number 200, that in 2011.
We don't want to talk about it.
Yeah.
But that's the thing, actually, one of the things that people forget, the National Guard car led coming to the white flag in both that race and the Coca-Cola 600 in 2011. Both times, that driver didn't win the race.
Yeah, well, I mean, take it up with Junior Nation at that point.
Fuel, should we say. Fuel, Troy Eddy versus Chris Stokes, by the way. P13, P14. There are battles going on up and down your field right now. Let's give you a little bit of RaceSpotTV fan immersion as we show you some battles through your field. We got problems. Caution number 1 of the day. Noah Anders and Christopher Peters out of this event by the looks of it. Let's get a replay. Well, there's Christopher Peters. I want to try and find Noah Anders. There you can see him. We'll go on board with Noah Anders. Oh, it was Christopher Peters actually. Sorry, take it back. Christopher Peters coming on towards pit road. He's completely lost that car coming in by the looks of it. Either that or he just lost that car on the exit turn number 4. Here's another look on board then. Yeah, he lost it there on the exit of turn number 4, down low rather than being up high. Well, he tried to keep that car on the inside to come on towards pit road to save the caution, but he wasn't able to do so. And I was about to say, Cisco, we're about to get green flag pit stops. We're now going to get pit stops under yellow. 24 laps scored complete.
Yeah, absolutely, and I gotta think, Will, that just looked like a little. Peters was getting a little too aggressive with the weight jacker there. Probably put a little too much in the car, and you know what? Sometimes you aggressively trim it out to try and make speed. And you look at Peters; he had fallen out of that top group. He was probably trying to make his way back up to it. He was losing that second pack. Tried to go for broke, and well, he's broke.
That's what I say. Sometimes qualifying doesn't always matter that much. So here come the drivers then on towards pit road. Our first caution of the day here, lap number 24. And it'll be Bradley Walters that will bring the drivers on towards pit road this time by. Expect everyone to come on towards pit road because we're over 2/3 of the way through a pit cycle. And here they all come in then. We'll see them now cycling through on your screen. They've got to make sure they can't go through more than 2 pit stalls coming on towards pit road, otherwise they will get themselves a black flag penalty. In addition, they cannot, on the exit of pit road, try and do a diamond effect through turns number 1 and 2. So here we are. Those drivers all now are on pit road, and let's see who's going to win. They all cycle themselves into their boxes. Front of the pack, of course, is Bradley Walters. Christopher Peters, that car that you can see second in line, that is damaged and out of this race. But let's have a look. They're coming out of pit road. It's pandemonium, but your top 4 drivers come out as is. Tim Doyle's up 2 places. As there's your top 15 cycling through for you now. Well, pretty drama-free first pit stop there. Walters, Trost, Holgate, Steele, Kinsella, Marco Aurelio, Brazil. We'll step aside for a few moments here, therefore, ladies and gentlemen, on RaceSpotTV, but we'll be back with more after these messages.
Watch Ernie, go, go, go. Car right, car right, car right, car right. Watch him, watch him, watch him, watch him. Damn it! Get ready. Dude, more heads up than that. Jeez!
Right on the back wing. Can he make it happen?
Push like hell. We gotta stay in front of these guys.
Both drivers on the push to pass. Contact in the pit lane.
All right, sexy. Let that eagle fly. What do I do? What happened? Push here. Push hard. Let's go get this guy. Car outside. Through behind you. Tell. Clear outside. Good job. Just spun behind you. I don't know if you got him or not.
He got out of it so hard. Look at these guys are all over the back.
Full throttle.
It's a very quick caution. We're back to green here. Bradley Walters brings the field back to the green flag, and already then, Cisco, they are at it.
Yeah, very quick caution. These guys got it back underway, and Tim Holgate wasted no time, able to steal that second position away. But Trost now going to jump to the bottom of the, and he's going to go to the inside of the 06. And Bradley Walters, he had a big start, but just like at a plate track, as soon as you get a huge start, you're just going to get it gobbled up because these guys are going to get the aero stream to work. Well, not if they're side by side right now, but Trost on that bottom, just got to know he's going to back out of it. Wasn't able to do anything with the 06 of Tim Holgate, and Holgate says, thank you very much for the draft. I'll take the inside line.
They are 3 wide though behind them, Randy. That is the P, number 11, 12, 13.
These guys really fighting hard just outside of the top 10, and they're going to get themselves pretty much single file through 1 and 2. Still side by side for Troy Eddy. And Nick has got Dello coming down now. You're back straight away off of turn 2 on the run into turn 3. And for the most part, though, your field after that, seemingly getting themselves single file. The big talking point, I think, on this restart, Will, that second pack did a terrible job being able to stay with your leaders. Talking about Kinsella, Steele, and Marco Aurelio Brazil. They were all part of that lead pack. They now have Doyle, Branch, and Doc for company as they work down your front straightaway.
But these 3, if they fight too hard out front, the issue's going to be, Cisco, is that pack behind is going to catch you up. The issue is the pack behind, they don't know what they want to do either. Castile versus Consider right up in the wall there on the exit of turn number 2. I think he might have scraped it there. He just lost the position also now to Tim Doyle.
And that's kind of what can happen, Will, when you're at Indy. If you get caught on the outside of that crest going into 1 and 2, you're basically stuck up there because of the arrow. He had cars on his inside. You're not able to drive the car. You're not able to walk it down the track. So he got stuck up there near contact between Tim Doyle and Christian Steele, able to hold on to it. But these guys won't go single file, and as a result, the leaders just pulling away.
Yeah, 1.5 seconds now is the advantage between Brandon Trost and Marco Aurelio Brazil. And Brazil, we know, can be a quote-unquote aggressive driver, Randy. So he knows what he wants to do right now. He needs some help, but Steele isn't giving it to him right now.
Yeah, Marco's being a little over-defensive, I think, right now. I mean, we're working lap number 29 of 500, and he's taking the defensive line into 3, and he's got a second some-odd gap he has to try to reel in to the likes of Trost, Walters, and Holgate. I think Brazil will be a lot better just letting Steele by, but because they're going to be aggressive, the likes of Doyle and the likes of Steele are going to take open doors, as Doyle thought about making it 3 wide into 1 there, but Doyle's going to try to shuffle Brazil back to the 3rd spot in that little bit of pack. Kinsella might try to slip through as well, and if that happens, we might see Brazil not able to really fight back and get himself back to the front of this field. A lot of times, we normally talk about making friends on a big plate track, but if you're over aggressive in terms of blocking and prevent people from trying to catch the cars out in front, they're likely going to be less willing to work with you for the rest of the race.
Yeah, and the decisions you make in lap number 30, Randy, is going to be the same decisions that people remember at lap number 185.
I mean, that's the huge point, is Marco Aurelio Brazil gets a big run. Does he make it down the inside of Christian Steele? He puts the car there almost. I think that Steele could have gotten down to that curb, but with the arrow push that he would have gotten for Doyle, chose not to. And now Marco Aurelio Brazil stuck behind the two of them. I think Marco Aurelio likely a little bit more trimmed out than he would probably like to be right now, because he is very, very quick when he had that clean air wheel, but now that he's getting stuck behind Steele and Doyle and now Kinsella working the inside of him, he's not really able to get out towards the front of this pack the way he was before.
Ladies and gentlemen, it is time for your Scott Goodyear moment of the race, where we talk about the anti-roll bars. On Cisco, there are anti-roll bars and a weight jacket on this car that they can use at this racetrack. They've got the anti-roll bars that will help stiffen or loosen the rear of the car, and in addition to that, they have themselves the anti-roll bar. It does seem trivial we talking about this, but it is really important to note these, because they are crucial to getting yourself a victory here today.
Why are you doing this? Well, the technical specifications of the car, they're built to provide the best competition for these drivers. And I have to say that IndyCar has done a great job of ensuring that this competition does really well here at Indy.
But Tim Doyle, Christian Steele, they are separated by 2 tenths of a second. It is worth noting, actually, on a more serious note, Cisco, that over the course of the last 2 laps or so, they closed up a tenth and a half in a second. Now, they don't need to close 1.2. What they realistically need to do, they need to close up half a second, and then they'll get that drive.
Yeah, absolutely. And if they can close that gap, and they're running single file right now, so for the moment, everyone looks good. But as Randy alluded to before, I wonder that if Brazil was leading the second pack, as Randy said, he looked to be a little bit more trimmed out to run up front. Maybe they could gain a little bit more with that car out front sort of co-opetition deal, but a lot harder to do that at Indy than it is at, let's just say Talladega.
Yeah. I actually think wondering about that is what we saw catch out Christopher Peters, because we saw that number 2 machine put that car on the outside of the front row, and then he lost a couple spots early, and then he just continued to fall back. I think that might have been the same phenomenon that caught out one of your front row qualifiers in the early stages of this race.
And the ironic thing of those circumstances is, Randy, what you therefore want to do is not try and race the guys in front of you. You always want to drop back to a second behind, click off some laps, come onto a split road, put some more wing in that car, clear out with the weight jacket, the anti-roll bars, and then carry on. Because this is a 200 lap race, and you've got enough time to make adjustments to your car.
I'd actually argue the right thing to do, the thing you'd want to do just from the start of the race, if anything, start this car out with too much aero on it. Even if you go a little bit overboard and you have too much wing, yeah, maybe if you're fighting for the lead, you can't make a pass stick. You might have to always be in second or third place. People might always be able to get by you, but I would rather have a car that can work if I lose some spots early, rather than have a car that only works if I don't lose spots early.
Yeah, and that's the important thing to note, as we've got Christopher there going out with Andreas Eek. See a lot of Andreas here today, because he's been involved in the wars quite a lot. As ahead, the top 3 drivers are separated by exactly the same gap, 2/10 of a second. Tim Holgate, Bradley Walters, and Brandon Trost. The gap between Brandon Trost and Tim Doyle, it is, well, 1.3 seconds right now. And here's a look at the lap graphics there, Cisco. We're talking minutiae here. 21 1,000ths of a second, negative. 6 1,000ths of a second, positive. And then 31 1,000ths of a second, positive for Tim Doyle as they cross the line again. And this time by, 6 100ths gained there. So they are gaining little by little.
Little by little, but they're gonna have to do, obviously they have a long run to go here. These guys probably just gonna sit back, allow this green flag run to take it to, you know, go on for a little bit before they start worrying about, you know, how close they're closing on the lead. They got plenty of laps to do it, Will, so it's definitely, they're not racing against the clock. We're not at like 20 to go where these guys need to catch the leaders. They can cruise for the moment, keep everyone clean, keep everyone in the draft, and keep slowly gaining on that lead. And as the leaders continue to battle, that's also going to help as well. As Bradley Walters says, thank you very much, I'll take the lead back now.
Yep, and we'll have someone keep an update on the lead changes officially in this motor race. We have got Brandon Trainer here from Broken Arrow, part-time commentator, long-time IndyCar driver. Brandon, what's up, buddy?
What's going on, guys? How are you?
Well, not bad, not bad. What's your thoughts on the first 38 laps of this race?
This is actually pretty exciting to watch. I'm surprised on that first restart that everybody got spread out like that, so it's going to be interesting to see whose car is good in clean air and see if a couple more people can separate themselves.
Now, you've raced in these track conditions, the cold track conditions, of course. Who can forget your last couple of laps of the 16th trip in the Indianapolis a few years ago when it came down to the last 10 laps? But in draft city like what we've got today, how hard is it to keep that car going, knowing that there's people going to pass you as you're going to pass others?
With these colder temperatures, it's a lot harder to break away from somebody. As you can see, Holgate and Bradley here running 1-2. They're starting to break away from Trost a little bit. You're not really sure if Trost has more downforce on it, but he's notorious for running more downforce. So if you break that draft, you know, Bradley and Holgate can kind of start stepping away a little bit.
Marco Brazil right now running himself in the 8th position. Actually, Cisco, not really talk about that much. Marco, all of a sudden, being in the 8th, can't close up to his guys ahead of him.
I'm wondering if he fell behind on a little bit of adjustment here, or just got trapped, or we're just talking about another situation of cars being trimmed out to run up front and being in dirty air. I mean, it's going to be a huge problem for these guys today. Maybe because he was up front, he didn't make any changes to his car on that pit stop, and as a result, he's kind of fallen back amongst these guys. And because he's trimmed to run up front, he can't really do anything here.
Yeah, indeed so. As we are now lap number 41 of 200 here on RaceSpot, and there are your top 3 drivers. Brandon Trost in that 3rd place. Well, Trost seems to be content right now, Cisco, just running that 3rd place, not putting the pressure on those 2 drivers ahead of him.
Yeah, and I think he's sitting back cruising at this point. I wonder if he's maybe trying to see how the car handles under that dirty air here because of how different it is, and maybe he's trying to see how much he can get away with adjustments in that dirty air to keep as much speed as he can, because that's what I'd be doing if I was there. I'd be, just sitting behind, seeing what I can get away with and what I can hold on to in the car, because as it sits right now, he's in a very good position. He's up with those leaders, and he's got a decent gap, as actually the leaders just got a huge amount of gain on Trost there. Trost has got to pick up the pace here because he just lost a bunch of time.
Yeah, and I think that what's happening right now, Randy, is that Trost is like, you know what, I'm going to try and save some fuel. But you do that, you run the risk of losing that draft very quickly. Because, as you said earlier on off camera, is like about half a second. The 0.6 of a second is that golden window. Behind that, that's when things get more difficult as Christy Steele and Tim Holgate are going to swap position for P4.
They've been swapping back and forth back there at the head of that pack, and they slowly have been sort of trying to make headway on that lead group. They've made headway on Brandon Trost, but they haven't made it on Holgate and Walters. But what we were talking about before, Will, in my testing for the official iRacing Indy 500 in a couple weeks time, I've found you really feel the draft from about 0.3 to 0.5 off the car in front of you. 0.5 is a little bit far back. We see, though, that Trost has closed the gap back down to Bradley Walters and Tim Holgate, but you get a little bit further than that, start getting 6, 7, 8/10 off, a second off, you don't really feel that draft anymore. While you may not feel the dirty air either, you can definitely stay flat through the corners. The main thing is that you're not going to be gaining on those cars in front of you with the slipstream.
Tim Doyle then in that 4th place goes back ahead of Christian Steele. And actually,
oh, Marco Brazil, he's on the apron, the access road. What happened? Caution out.
Oh, second caution of the day. Let's get a replay.
Wagner Pagaro involved.
Jose Godoy, 12.
Oh, it started off there with Brazil. Brazil went down to the apron all by himself. And then behind...
610 got in the wall, I think.
Yeah. Let's see if we can get ourselves a replay. Pagaro, as you can see, there's the incident for him. This is coming down in towards turn number 1. Oh, that classic, the tyres aren't giving me any more grip moment down at turn number 1, Cisco.
Yeah, and the 12 of Jose there, just nowhere to go. The car comes back up on track, and he, at the last second, I think he thought the car was going to slide down back below to the bottom of the racing groove. Wasn't the case, and the 12 just side swipes him, and man, oh man, that's a hard hit for the 12, as it was for the 610. Both those cars are going to need a lot of repair work.
Well, pit road will be open again this time by, and well, Randy, last time by on pit road, no one changed positions, but it being again halfway through a stint, maybe some people might try and do a different strategy compared to the first stop.
Perhaps, and really it's going to depend on your mindset, isn't it, Will? Are we going to have a short run, or are we going to have a long run? If we're going to have a long run, then you pretty much just fill the car up. Likely don't mess with your aero or anything. If you're happy with the handling of the car, don't make any adjustments, and then just go out. Wherever you come out, you come out. If you think that we're going to have a short run, you want to pick up some track position, take your tires, maybe take a little bit less fuel, and maybe trim that car out about a little bit to get yourself to the front of the field. If you can guarantee yourself you come out in that top group, and ideally maybe even with the lead, you can trim that car out a little bit. You might be able to hold on to the lead for a while. Of course, I mean, the double-edged sword of that is you end up like Marco Aurelio Brazil or Christopher Peters, we think, having the car too trimmed out, and you don't end up really you being, let's say, ineffective throughout the pack.
Yeah, as you can see there, coming out pit road, who's going to get the nod? Well, they all stay where they are, except Tim Holgate comes up 1 place, Brandon Trost up 3 places. So there is quite a bit of moving this time around, actually. I take that one back as they circulate themselves out of pit road. A unique camera there we had from the rear of Tim Holgate. We'll step aside for a moment here on RaceSpotTV. Be back with more after these messages.
Get ready, going green. Green, green, green.
ladies and gentlemen. We are 1 to go. Half a lap to go now. Let's go. Bradley Walters back in the lead of this motor race.
Yeah, and Walters is going to have that pole position. He had a really great start last restart here, but Tim Holgate back in that second spot. I don't think it'll be too long before that 06 retakes control, but Trost is with him here, so that means we might have a little bit of a battle on our hands once this thing goes back green.
Yep, and we are going to go back to green in a few moments' time. We'll bring you back to the green then. A little bit of RaceSpotTV fan immersion. Randy, what a restart there by Bradley Walters.
Could you have ever asked yourself for a bigger window here at Indianapolis? I'm not sure what happened or how we managed to do that, but Tim Holgate, Brandon Trost, the rest of the field absolutely sleeping. Bradley Walters out to an enormous lead. It's going to be 2 seconds plus.
As Christian Steele is on towards pit road, we think that is because he overtook before the green flag there, Cisco.
And what happened, and I don't know if we'll be able to get a look at it, but as we talked about it, I believe it was in CIS, when the red light comes on the back of these cars, that means the pit limiter hat was on. Tim Holgate accidentally hit that pit limiter, I believe, and I think he stalled just for a moment. Trost had to bail out, and everyone else passed on the outside, and as a result, huge lead for Walters in what could have been just a simple mix-up for the 06.
Yeah, let's have a look then on board with Tim Holgate again. There's him. That's the reason why Walters just drove off into the distance. Now let's get a look on board with that driver of Christian Steele, if we can. There you are. That's the light you're talking about, Cisco.
Yeah, that rear light on the car, that means that the pit limiter's on because we don't have rain, so we don't have to worry about for anything else. I think Holgate just accidentally hit the pit limiter, checked up that entire field, and as a result, Walters is in another postal code.
Yeah. Brandon Trost actually did a fantastic job by Cisco not running into the rear.
Oh yeah, that could have been, sorry, but that could have been huge. That could have been a huge checkup on the outside. Everyone could have just piled in. We would have had a big run at Indy if that had been the case.
But here are your top 8 then after that restart, and you'll see Bradley Walters leads by 2.5 seconds right now over Tim Holgate. Tim Doyle right there behind Holgate. It's about the Tim right now, P number 2. Vic Cordell in 4th. Adam Dock in P number 5. Gonna hand it over to our driver expert for a moment here. That is Brandon Trainer. Brandon, in this situation, is it worth trying to gain those 2.5 seconds back, or do you just ride it out for the moment?
It all depends on how fast you think your car is. Bradley has shown a lot of speed recently, and I think he's stretched that lead out by half a second in just a couple laps, so clearly he's either trimmed out or Holgate and Doyle aren't really that quick. So, you know, it comes down to what you really want to do. You want to play that fuel strategy game, or do you want to go get that lead back?
I'll tell you one thing. Brandon Trost has just made up 3 places in 1 lap, Brandon.
Well done by Trost trying to push his way up to the front. He's got still, though, 2 more people he has to get by of Tim Holgate and Tim Doyle as they work themselves now into corner number 1. This 8 or 9 car pack working themselves through the first of the half of the lap here at Indianapolis. And I have to say, in my opinion, that 2.4 second advantage, I think right now there's really not a huge point in trying to push and try to bringing that gap down out there on the racetrack. It is hugely difficult to reel in a 2.5 second disadvantage in these Indy cars at Indianapolis. I think you're better off just more or less sitting where you are, maybe thinking about strategy, maybe thinking about trying how to bring that gap down through the long game rather than in here and the now.
And the thing is, you can easily do so, right? If you've got the draft in your favour, then you can easily do so if you work together. The issue is that these guys now see P2 as the race leader.
Big incident, the extra one.
So that's going to put that one into check because we now got a huge caution.
Marco Aurelio Brazil is in this one of our at one point favorites, we thought at one point. This is an incident with Chris Stouffer through turn 1, going through 1 and 2. Looks to me, Will, just flat out, I think Stouffer got a bit of that arrow push behind Andrew Kinsella, and he pushed up into Marco Brazil.
Yep, there's a look on board now with Marco running Brazil. And yeah, you're right, Stouffer just came up the track.
And that's really disaster, and that's what we're talking about, why it's such a huge impact to be one of these guys, to maybe try, you attempt trimming your car out to be quicker and having it backfire. This is why I'm always a fan of playing it safe and just having a little bit too much wing, if anything, on the car. Marco Aurelio Brazil, at one point fighting for your race lead, he ends up at the tail of your top 10, and that sees him get put out of the motor race.
Yeah, and there's a look then. We'll just pause this for you right at the moment of impact. And what you see is that there is where that car should be right now. Stouffer's moved up a good half, at least, of a line through the corner. And, well, Brazil's not doing the wrong thing by running where he is. Brazil's in the right part of the line. But in terms of that, Stouffer, just seems to be that there's too much of that aero push from those cars ahead of him. And the aero push is different from when you have one car compared to multiple cars this way.
Yeah, that's absolutely the case, and a horrific crash there. And, we talked about trimming it out, and then, of course, the discussion has been kind of, alongside this race, arrow push. How is it compared to last year? And because of the temperatures of the race, it's not as bad. Also, some tweaking into the aerodynamics for these cars means that the arrow push isn't as bad. But, wow. I mean, if you're going to shoot to the inside, and yeah, I'm suddenly really surprised because either Walters just got caught out or we're missing something because he's in big trouble. That is not good, Will. That is really not good.
And it's only a few laps. And I think Walters is thinking, okay, I'm going to go long game here. But, well, Bradley Walters and Vinicius Cortadello stay out. Everyone else comes on towards pit road right now. And as a consequence of that, Tim Doyle up 2 places, Holgate down 1, Cordell up 4 places right now. That is huge in this event there, Cisco.
Yeah, that's huge. Cordell picked up a ton of places. He's running, as we're showing right now, gotta double check, he's 5th. So, that for one thing is a big gain. And considering that, let's see, Walters stayed out, Morelia stayed out, Gardadello stayed out, and Doyle, I believe, stayed out. Those are all the cars that stayed out, Will. Actually, no, I think Doyle did pit. So, you have 3 cars that stayed out. So, for all intents purposes, you could really say that Cordell's really running about 3rd or 4th right now.
Yeah, indeed. So, let's step aside for a brief moment, then back more after this.
Watch Ernie, go. Car right. Watch, jam it. Get ready. Dude, blow heads up in that. Jeez.
Right on the back wing. Can he make it happen?
Yeah. Push like hell. We gotta stay in front of these guys.
Drivers on the push to pass. Contact in the pit lane.
All right, 60. Let that eagle fly. What do I do? What happened? Push here. Push hard. Let's go get this guy. All Clear outside. Through behind you. Toe. Clear outside. Good job. Just spun behind you. I don't know if you got him or not.
He got out of it so hard. Look at these guys are all over the back.
Full throttle.
IndyCar.
He hit an outlap.
What's next?
Come and get the checkers, big boy. Oh, baby, that was good. He hit me. Inside, outside.
2017 Verizon IndyCar Series. See what's next.
Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. We are ready to go as we are working ourselves under caution. Now, it's worth noting that the two drivers at the front of your field, they did not pit that last time by. That is those two there, Bradley Walters and Volusia Speedway. Tim Doyle did pit, and it's the first of the drivers to pit, and looks like he probably took fuel only based upon the fuel numbers. However, what's going to happen next? Well, we don't quite know, Randy, and there's that whole feeling that cautions every so often breed another caution.
Going to be really, really interesting to see what happens here. A few different strategies at play. Maybe fuel only for some, fuel and tires for most, and some not taking anything at all amongst your top few drivers.
Well, here we are. They're back for the restart here. Walters, Cortadello, Doyle are your top three as they exit turn number 4. Pace cars in. Green flag waving. Tim Doyle does a good enough run there in towards turn number 1, but immediately he's got Tim Holgate right on his rear end as they come down to that first corner. It looks as though Cisco, actually, they mistimed that between the two of them.
Yeah, Holgate got way out of the throttle right now. He's actually going to go 3 wide. No, they're only going to go 2 wide, but Trost, who might be the angriest driver on earth right now because he got sent back in the pack, he jumps the inside, but that is the second odd restart by the 06, and he has not had the restart game up to par today, and I don't know what's going on, but they need to get that sorted out in that 06 camp because he's losing more and more places as this race goes on, just down to the fact that something seems to be wrong in that car.
He lost about 30 miles an hour in towards turn number 1 lane. I'm not quite sure what he did there, but he's now down to P5.
Well, they were just trying to time it right there and get the pass, and getting word from race control, who thanks to Chris Demerit is telling us what the time is. He missed the black flag for passing before the stripe by 0.002 of a second.
Wow. That's huge, Randy.
Is he? Well, I mean, it's not huge, and that's why it's so dramatic. If he had gotten that, he would have gotten a black flag. And think about what happened to Christian Steele. Christian Steele got bailed out, by the way. We kind of didn't talk about that. Steele got the black flag after Holgate hit the pit limiter. He passed Trost on the outside, got the black, had to serve a penalty. He didn't go a lap down, but he stayed on the lead lap, but he was miles away from the field, of course. That early yellow comes out, and yeah, he's still at the back of the field, but he's only 6 seconds down instead of being, what, 30 plus?
Yeah, as we're riding on board with Joe Flanagan versus Vinicius Magara right now. That battle's going on. Ahead, we've got battles going on. Vic Cordell involved in the wars all of a sudden. Splitting up the two Tims, Tim Holgate and Tim Doyle. And there is a look down at Christian Steele down at P number 17. Arguably, Cisco, if there's any driver who can find a way back up, it is this guy. But the thing is, it's 1.2 between him and the next driver, Artiega Perez.
Yeah, absolutely. The good thing for Steele, he does have someone on the box for him here, Richard Tam, in the crew slot there for Steele, so he's got someone to run all those calculations, so he doesn't have to do it. He can focus on the thing he needs to do right now, which is drive. And the good thing for him is they are battling all crazily right in front of him, so be able to catch those guys, but he's going to need either another yellow or to run some strategy numbers to try and get back up into the fight.
Yeah, I'd argue a mixture of both of them was going to be appropriate for Christian Steele at this point. We are now 62 laps in to this 200-lap race, and Joe Flanagan versus Troy Eddy. That one's going on there, Randy, for P number 11.
fights, like we said, are going to be happening up and down this field all day, and it's going to be, you know, really interesting to see, isn't it? Because those guys up near the front aren't going to be able to run, well, are going to be running much different setup options than, say, if you're Troy Eddy, Niles Anders, or Nikas Marega right now, because we've been talking about that aero push all race one. We've said that the aero push is different from when there's 1 or 2 cars in front of you to the point where there's 10, 11, 12 cars in front of you. These guys are going to have a lot more aero on their cars to make it work out.
Yeah, as Niles Anders moves ahead of Joe Flanagan. Flanagan cannot respond down into that first corner to move Niles Anders now up into that 12th position on track as well. Ahead, Joe Branch then versus Brandon Trost. Trost down in that 6th position is slowly starting to work his way back up through this one. Let's ride a couple of corners on board with Brandon Trost. Look at RaceSpotTV fan immersion. Trost closes up to rear Tim Doyle, but Randy not making any imprint really on Vic Cordell versus Tim Holgate versus Tim Doyle, as Holgate and Cordell switch positions. They are going to be too wide, almost too deep in towards turn number 1.
Doyle, I think, thought for a half a second there of making it 3 wide with Caudill and with Holgate. Through 2, though, see Doyle not really having the pace down on the inside. I think he may have clipped that curb and lost that bit of speed. We talked about that during qualifying, Will, but look at the penalty in the race. If you get down to the inside of turn 2 too much and catch that curb just a little bit wrong, that's a quick, easy way to lose yourself 4 spots.
Yeah, as Holgate now clearly in 3rd place. He's got a bit of a buffer between Brandon Trost even up into 4th and Vic Cordell. But the gap, again, has grown dramatically between P1 and 2 and the rest of your pack here, Cisco. It's 2.1 seconds once again.
Yeah, and it's because of these guys battling back and forth. I mean, Trost has made his way up to 4th now, Holgate running in 3rd, but you gotta remember, Trost restarted around 8th, and these guys continuing to battle back behind Adam Dock, Andrew Kinsella there, so they keep losing a little bit of time to those leaders, precious time. And I mean, we're all, the way we're operating right now, Godadello and Walters, they stayed out. So as it is right now, they're kind of behind the 8 ball, at least from what we can think on the strategy game. I know, Randy, I'm guessing you got the calculator out at this point, and we'll have to figure out how much that's going to hurt them, if it does even hurt them. But interesting strategy for Walters and Godadello. But we're assuming that they're not good on fuel. We don't know, though.
Yeah, it's not by much, but it's enough in a long race like this, Henry.
Yeah, it could, but the thing to keep in mind, though, that this is such a long race, 133 laps to go. I don't think anyone would be smart saying, oh, well, I'm going to plan my strategy for the last 150 laps of the race to be caution-free. I think these guys are likely thinking track position. And honestly, if you're Vinicus Cottardello, I think you have the right idea. I mean, he was running for most of the race down to your top 15, maybe your top 20. Now he makes this strategy call. He gets himself in 2nd. And if we get ourselves a maybe 10 to 15 lap or so run, you get to see a yellow come out, majority of the field will come down, and he'll go from running outside of the top 15, maybe outside of the top 20, to potentially inside of the top 5 or the top 10.
Well, there's the graphics. You can see that Tim Holgate has made 3 pit stops, and he's on his 12th lap of his stint. Same with Brandon Trost, of course, because they pitted at the same time. They're 10 laps longer for Vinicius Cortadello, and that means they'll be on pit road realistically there, Cisco, in about 10 laps time.
Yeah, and once they hit pit road at that point, you got to make sure you hit your marks, everything like that coming down pit road. You don't want to lose any time on that. And for the leaders out front, that's going to be a little bit easier because, well, they're all by themselves. But when Tim Holgate, Brandon Trost, all of them have to decide to come down pit road, they're all going to be in a big pack. And regardless of where you go, it's always a little bit harder to shoot for that pit road when you're in a bunch of cars.
Vic Cordell down in P number 7. pressure from Joe Bryant in the number 28. We'll see now. Joe Bryant normally runs the Verizon colours, but you see the whole Penske thing. Indy means Pennzoil there, Randy.
I mean, that Penske Pennzoil scheme is pretty much iconic for a lot of drivers, and you know, yellow is my favorite color. It's one of my my favorite schemes, and can't really blame Joe for running that one.
If I only knew a broadcast that had yellow as its corporate color.
That would be interesting. Let's just say that.
Yeah. So we've got Joe Bryant now under pressure from Tim Doyle. Tim Doyle has fallen back a little bit as well. We got on board of him in the number 11 Foyt Wines machine. You talk about iconic paint schemes like Brandon. You know this is the driver. You see that purple and white car, you know it's Tim Doyle. You know you're in for a fight.
Yeah, anytime I always saw that purple and white car in the mirror, you knew that you knew it was Tim Doyle, and you know, the intimidation factor always is there with Tim. He's always good at Indy. It's one of his strongest tracks I think he ever has.
It's ironic as well though, Brandon, because you talk about this being one of the strongest tracks. His other strongest track is Richmond. Completely different oval to this.
Yeah, you wouldn't expect to be really good at Indy and be really good at Richmond, you know. He's definitely got some talent at both of these tracks, and he's got something that a lot of people don't.
Now we're getting close, just past 1/3 distance in this motor race. And there, top 8 down at the bottom of your screen right now. Walters leads away with Volusia Speedway. Tim Holgate in the 3rd place. 4th place is Brandon Trost. Consider Doc, Brandt and Cordell round out your top 8. Well, really, when we think about it, big picture here, Cisco. Nothing really different from what we expected.
Not really. I mean, you know, Holgate and Trost, at the end of the day, they're kind of leading the second contingent. They're on the primary strategy right now. You have the alternate strategy for the top 2 at the moment, but on that primary strategy, it's the 07, or the 007 and the 06. I'm not very surprised by that, and I think most viewers who are familiar with the drivers in this series, not very surprised at all as the 007's going to go by. And finally, Brandon Trost has caught up to Tim Holgate after that incident that happened, oh man, it was like 30 laps ago now at this point.
Yeah, he has. He's actually got past Tim Holgate for the moment. There he is, in front of that train. But the issue is 2.3 seconds, and that comes back to our early conversation, Randy. You run it as a bidepartmental race, or do you think, I've got to win?
I think you have to take this race in stages at some point. I think your overall approach has to be, I need to be at the front of the field by lap 200, but you need to break it up in opportunities. You don't want to come into this race necessarily with a preset strategy, a pre-race situation of this is what I'm going to do. You need to be able to roll with the punches. You need to roll with whatever gets thrown at you and figure out how to make the best of it. Sometimes doing what everyone else is doing isn't what you should be doing. Sometimes doing the exact opposite is what ends up working out for a lot of people. And sometimes when you get thrown a hard curveball that you basically get forced to swing and miss at, you need to be able to know how to bounce back. And talking about that story, Christian Steele, he's currently worked himself back up to 12th, and he's now on the back of Andres Elkanal-Zanders and Tim Doyle. So quickly, I think, going to put himself in the top 10, as right now we see Anders making a move on Doyle down into 1. Steele getting himself in the top 10 as well.
Yeah, now it's Tim Doyle, Christian Steele, being number 10, being number 11, Niles Anders just ahead of them. So the battles begin to rage in the mid-pack. What I want to show you, however, is what the situation is at the front of your field, because 29 laps they've now done on this set of tyres and Rob Brown, and that means we know they'll be in the next 3.
Yeah, that's probably the reason that they've broken away, is they've been on low fuel because they stayed out. So it's going to be interesting to see where they come out when they pit, if they're going to be mired back in traffic. If Bradley's low on downforce, that's going to make it really difficult to get back through the field. And that aero push could cause some problems for him, but we'll just have to see how it plays out.
How long does an aero adjustment in the pits take? Could he do that without losing any time?
I want to say it's about a second, maybe a second and a half added on your overall time.
Is it worth it though? That's the question, Cisco.
Well, you're charging pit road, Will. I mean, we've seen that work really well. We saw that actually at Fontana is what I think of easily there. You can gain a lot of time on pit road, but if you're charging pit road at Indy, you have to remember the cone's a little bit different than the usual NASCAR oval. They're a little bit further down, so you have to make sure. No,
for these guys, the NASCAR ones are different.
Yeah, true story.
Yes, I know, but Randy, it's, you have that approach where you have that longer straight shot, so you can milk that a little bit longer than what you might have on the NASCAR oval. Oh, Brett, it looks like secondary strategy. Well, I guess it's time to pit for those guys, because Walter's going to hit pit road, leaving Gardello, the only car to stay out.
Yep, so there you can see Bradley Walters on towards pit road. Let's show you then him coming on towards pit road again. Nicely on towards pit road. I asked the question, is it worth it? Of course, under green flag conditions, Randy, you'd argue it's worth it a little bit more because 1.5 seconds under caution can be 4 or 5 places. Under under green, when the field's spread out like this, yeah, he might be back in the pack. Is that an issue? No.
Yeah, and I'd say, if anything, especially what we've seen, what's happened to everybody today, you might want to take that away or adjustment. The same thing to think, though, is that you might come down pit road, and you're going to spend so long on pit road that you might just come out so far behind everyone that it doesn't matter, and you can keep that car trimmed out.
Wait a minute. Just having a replay there, Bradley Walters. He put half the car over the white line. That may well go to Stewart's inquiry there, Randy.
That's definitely pushing it. I know that on pit exit in the sim, you won't get a penalty for that, but Walters had the 2 right side wheels over the white line. The question is, it's really going to come to race control at this point, what they have to say about that.
Meanwhile, Holgate versus Trost. As you see, Gardello on towards pit road. There's Holgate to the race lead on lap number 80 of this run race as Gardello makes a pit stop. Coming into his box now, he does. So let's have a look at the pit stop for him. 4 fresh tyres, Firestone Firehawks, Indy specifications. 9.6 seconds out and away. No wheel spin on pit exit. Being a little bit cautious there. Now there's a bump just after you exit pit road, Randy. That's what you got to be careful of.
That's the bump you have to look over. You see Vinicus Roca, he just went over it right there. Word from race control, they're looking for 4 tires over the white line.
So you can be aggressive. I'm gonna say race control has made a bit of a mistake saying that, because 2 tires turns into 3 quarters of the car, which turns into almost 4 tires. And, you put 2 wheels over there, Cisco, and all of a sudden, you are potentially impeding on those drivers turning hot laps.
Yeah, I mean, for a driver, if they do 4 over means, well, I can put, 3.5. I can cut the tire in half. That's fine. That's not 4. So if race control's going to say 4, that means as a driver, I'm going to go, okay, well, I'm going to get about as close as I can to possibly crossing that line here, because in that case, I don't have to worry about getting in traffic, and I'll probably end up having a better run off pit road. Thank you very much.
Okay, versus Troy separated now by absolutely nothing. They're trading flip-flopping position to give you an update on where the drivers who came off pit road recently are. Let's start by having a look at Mortadello. He's down to number 17. Interestingly, he is 1 second behind anyone else, Cisco. So he's allowed to push, and of course, he's now on heavier fuel by a good 20 laps than anyone else.
Yeah, absolutely, and both of those drivers kind of in sight lines of the leaders. Maybe not quite. Maybe on the once you come around turn 2, you might be able to catch a glimpse of them. But if they're on bigger fuel loads, they're going to be a little bit slower, and the leaders are probably just going to start eating up that lead. So for Gardello and for Walters here, they have to make sure if they lose that lap and the caution comes out, well, this ain't NASCAR, bro. You're not getting that wave around.
But they are still in the lead lap, and that's the important thing. So often, if you're outside the top 5 at Indy and you come in towards pit road under green, you lose a lap. And the good thing is, Randy, both these drivers are still in the green lap. So if there is a yellow, then they're in a good position.
They're actually in a really good position. I actually think this is a double-edged sword, because if the yellow comes out now, like hypothetically, they both can stay out and they can be pretty much fine, and they're going to be roughly in sync with everyone else. However, if you get a yellow that comes out in about 5 to 10 laps, if it waits a little bit, you're going to be in a situation, if you're Bradley Walters, if you're Vinicus Cordello, that you got yourself to the front of the field, but now everyone's going to come down behind you or in front of you for sure, and you're going to end up with basically the entire field in front of you unless you can jump a few spots somehow.
So lap
you'll have a shorter fill though.
Yeah, lap number 84 score complete here in the 2017 Apex Infotech Indy Elite Series here on RaceSpotTV and on iRacing Live. And well, so far here today, what we learned, Draft City.
That really is what it is. It's Draft City and Aero Push City. I think Aero, thus far through the first 85 laps of the race, as we quickly approach that halfway point, has been the talking point. We've seen drivers who've been up near the front of the field get mixed into the field and then get themselves issues. And we've seen the lead change almost lap after lap with the draft that we've been seeing today. We saw Brandon Trost actually take the lead into 3, and Holgate's going to get it into 1. Andrew Kinsella not going to be able to slip down on the inside of Trost. But we've also seen you can work your way through that field. Christian Steele has been the one to exemplify that, I think, more so than anybody, getting himself up near the front of the field. But Steele actually, bit of a strategy call coming in here, Will. He comes down on a pit road coming off of 4.
Yeah, he only does a 30 lap stint, 29 lap stint compared to the others. So going to bring in Brandon Traino here. Maybe Steele. Oh, he overshoots his pit stall as well. There's 1.5 seconds gone. But maybe some drivers, like Christian Steele, thought they're taking a little bit less fuel to get track position. Doesn't work out for them.
Yeah, this race is all about strategy. You know, you could be taking less fuel this stint, try to get in clean air, take some downforce out, get some speed.
We've got big trouble. We've got a driver on the attenuator right now. And that is Vinicius Marga, I believe. Yeah, number 46 machine. That's a big issue for any driver who's potentially trying to pit. Vinicius Marga there just completely ruined his entry on towards pit road. Replay of that one coming up. And well, what just happened? He came on towards pit road, locked the brakes and hit the attenuator. Simple as that, Randy.
Yeah, just lock the rears, and that's one of the things I've always been worried about here at this racetrack. When I enter pit lane, I'd actually like to favor to the left side of the pit entry and that wall on the left-hand side, because if you leave not a lot of room to that pit attenuator, yeah, you'll hit the pit attenuator wall, and it will end your race. I've always hoped that I come on the pit lane, if I stay near the left wall as I get on the brakes, if the car kicks that way, yeah, I'll hit that wall on the left, and I'd be mad I didn't stay to the right, but the penalty for hitting the left-hand wall and the right-hand wall is much less severe.
Yeah, they can see drivers having to avoid it. I'm surprised the yellow didn't come out there. We've got more drivers on pit road right now. Pretty much everyone is on pit road as we speak. So there's a look at the graphics that we've got coming up for you. There's Andrew Kinsella coming out of pit road as we speak right now. Actually, no, I'll take that back. He's coming on towards pit road, of course. But it does mean that Bradley Walters and Vinicius Cordello have cycled through, actually, ahead of Brandon Trost. But Trost has caught up now to the rear of Cordello. It's 1 second between the two of them, and Cisco, that's something that's worth playing with.
Well, it was until Tim Holgate just said, no, I'm going to go in front of you here, Trost. So those two kind of in a little bit similar draft conditions here, and I think what that difference in strategy has allowed Holgate and Trost kind of on their own just be able to work together, draft up. You see Kinsella come off pit road here, so he's going to be a third car in this kind of pack here. So that gap that Walters and Cordello, well, the gap Cordello had to that second pack, that's gone. He's going to be in big trouble here soon, because Holgate, Trost, and Kinsella, they can swap the draft. They don't have to worry about that headwind or anything like that, as Trost nearly catches the wall right there. Probably the biggest person in the lead still is got to be with that Walters machine. For as, you know, for being on that secondary strategy, he's been able to maintain that lead fairly well.
Yeah, and of course, part of that comes down to the fact they got themselves the advantage early on. And Cisco, realistically, what happened for that sequence of pit stops is nothing.
Yeah, apart from the rolling Indy car, Really not much changed, and you know, we had a little bit of a split up of the main pack. No longer Adam, Doc, Vic, Caudell. They've kind of fallen off the back, which I'm not surprised, because the Caudell was kind of fighting with Doc a little bit. You could throw Branch in that mix as well, but Branch really out in no man's land, and as is Christian Steele. And Steele, really, he was getting help because everyone was in a big pack. That's not the case anymore, and suddenly Steele's kind of in an odd way here. He triggered those green flag pit stops, though, so I'm wondering what the strategy is for that 78.
And it is also worth noting that actually, over the last lap or so, Tim Holgate and Trost have been slower than Gortadello. Part of that round will come down to the fact that Gortadello has got 7-8 laps less fuel on board. Now, that doesn't sound like much for a lot of drivers. That's a third of the tank. And at Indy, weight means everything.
It really does. I mean, the tires on these DW12 Indy cars, they do fall off. But if you look at the times don't really change a whole heck of a lot from the start of the run to the end of the run. Just looking at Gortadello, the start of his last run before he came down pit lane, he was doing 39.9s. Towards the end of the run, he got down to the 8s through the middle, and then that's basically where he stayed. He dropped into the 9s a little bit. He actually did his best lap of a 39.79, but you sort of hover around the same point. For those guys behind, they're not going to feel the tire advantage, but Gortadello is going to feel that fuel advantage by enough that they're not going to be able to reel him in, and even Gortadello might actually stretch that gap.
Indeed, so don't forget, this isn't the only Indianapolis 500 we've got coming your way here in the month of May. Next week, it's a turn of the Classic IndyCar Series. 5 p.m. GMT, noon Eastern Time. Join us next Sunday for the Classic IndyCar Series, Indianapolis 500 in the old style IR05 machine. Then, the Saturday after that, it is the greatest spectacle in all of sim racing. It is the 8th annual Indianapolis 500 on iRacing, and it is at 8:15 p.m. GMT. That is 3:15 p.m. Eastern Time. Join us for the greatest spectacle in all of sim racing. And well, May on RaceSpot means Indy. I've just said it again there, Cisco.
Yes, he did. And we're going to continue to say it because, well, it's May. That means we got a lot of racing coming up here. And, you know, not too long at a time, we're going to have some more racing on the iRacing family of channels here, Will.
I don't know what you mean. Do you want me to play some music for you?
Yes, that would be fabulous.
Okay, off you go.
Cue the music. Coming up in just over an hour, it's the World of Outlaws Super Late Model Series, and you can catch that on iRacing Live and LSR TV coming up at 9:30. Coverage starts at 9:15, but we're going live to the track, USA International, at 9:30.
Not as good a track as Indianapolis, I have to say.
Well, it doesn't even exist, so duh.
Yeah, no. And you consider versus Brandon Trost. Consider up into third, Randy.
Yeah, I mean, Trost and Kinsella have just been swapping places back and forth. Heck, officially, when they come across the stripe, last time by, Kinsella held third, so he lost third into one, got it back into 3. Let's see, does Trost take it back by the time they get to the line? Will they trade spots 4 times in 1 lap? Almost, not quite. Gap there, about 0.02 of a second in favor of Kinsella, but Trost gets the spot into 1, and you're going to see it again. You come down off of 2. Trano said it, Trost is somewhat infamous for running higher levels of downforce, and actually Kinsella doesn't get a good run through 2, so Trost is definitely going to hold this third spot for now, but if Kinsella had hooked turn 2 a lot better, he may have been able to make a pass into 3.
Well, we're getting ourselves close to halfway here. We'll give you a recap of things in a few moments' time. There's Tim Doyle, all of a sudden outside of your top 10 once again, Cisco.
Yeah, absolutely. And Doyle has had an up and down race. Really what kind of got him in that position was that incident where he made contact with the curb, lost about 4 or 5 places, and just hasn't been able to make that up. We know he's a capable driver, and we know he can pick up positions, but he lost so much in that move. He's probably going to spend the rest of this race trying to gain up the spots he lost there.
Yep, as that is Tim Doyle. Of course, what we've got to know is that Tim Doyle is one of the ultimate strategists here, and he has got himself more fuel than Andy Steele in front of him. And these guys, when they came towards pit road, they were separated over 4 laps. Part of that, and I'm going to get really technical here, is because of the downforce level. The more downforce you have, the more fuel you use, therefore, because basically your engine is having to do more work to get up to speed.
Yeah, your car will always be less efficient with more aero on it. You'll generate a lot more downforce. You'll feel a lot better in the pack, and that car will almost be easy peasy mode to drive down through the corners. But you will slowly burn more fuel. You'll also be slower in a straight line. So if you're Tim Doyle and Niles Anders right now, kind of off on your own little island, you might be playing a bit of a fuel strategy game, just kind of doing what you're doing. Compare that to someone, say Christian Steele, who, considering how far off he got put, basically having to restart from the back of that pack, he's having to race his way to the front of this next pack. And keeping that in mind, Steele has been reeling in the likes of Joe Branch and Vic Caudill over the course of this run. Adam Dock also, actually no, let me rephrase that. Vic Caudill and Adam Dock have been getting caught by Joe Branch and Christian Steele over the past handful of laps. That's going to become a 4-car pack, I think, in not too long.
Yeah, we are at lap number 99 of 200 here on RaceSpotTV. There are a couple of retirees. Let's run through them very quickly. Vinicius Mariga, of course, is a driver who decided to make a little bit of love with the attenuator a couple of laps ago as he came on towards pit road. Diego Perez out of the event. Troy Eddy and Amoria Marco Brazil out. Christopher out. Jose Gotti, Wagner Peregari, Andrea Stratopori, Jose Crescente, Christopher Peters, Robert Gort out of this event. Sad thing, actually, a lot of the Brazilian contingent here, Randy, are out of this event early.
That's definitely unfortunate because there are some vocal communities, and you have the Spanish community that we've seen in the past couple months, with especially what we saw from them from the Nürburgring 24, one of the most vocal communities in the sim. The Brazilians as well, a lot of the Hispanics in general, also very, very vocal in the sim racing community. We've seen a couple of guys in the chat actually, talking about how many Brazilian drivers were in this race. Definitely unfortunate for them that a lot of the drivers they're really pushing for in a race like this seen themselves go out of the race. I didn't hear a thing.
Vinicius Portugallo still runs himself in 3rd place, though. I say that, he just loses 2 places in 1 corner. 3 wide for a moment there, Cisco.
3 wide at Indianapolis. You don't see it a whole lot, but when you do, it's probably a good thing that the 2 guys doing it are probably 2 of the more qualified drivers to be making those moves. That was Trost and Holgate. They said, thank you very much, we're going to take that spot. And all of a sudden, Bradley Walters looks out the mirrors and goes, well, I guess Gordadello's out of the way now. The only car standing between Walters and Holgate and Trost is that Andrew Kinsella machine. And how about him? He was in a pack with those guys and kind of pulled out on his own. And all of a sudden, he's running 2nd in this race.
Yeah, I know. You can see a little bit of a RaceSpotTV Super Slow-Mo replay heading themselves in towards turn number 3. Gordadello losing position there. Tim Holgate in 3rd place versus Kinsella versus Bradley Walters. Worth noting that Gordadello has lost a lot of places since that round of pit stop. He's been shuffled back. Bradley Walters, though, 4.1 seconds ahead of your field right now. We thought this was going to be a close race, Cisco, but Bradley Walters is owning the field right now. He's punching his ticket to be the favourite for the greatest spectacle in sim racing, which is the iRacing Indianapolis 500, the 8th annual iRacing Indianapolis 500 in just 13 days' time.
Yeah, absolutely. He's using that gap that he earned, and just we thought, as you look at the Delta times, I mean, the best lap time right now sitting out there is Andrew Kinsella with a 5:31. By comparison, Bradley Walters is an 8:36, and well, there goes 14 and the 007 on the 06 there. Once again, 3 wide pass, but comparably, we talked about the top of the broadcast, Will. We thought, well, if you don't have the best pace here, you still have a decent shot at it. Walters, I would say, isn't the fastest car in the field, but he saw an opportunity and cashed it in, as it were.
Yeah, at Indy, it's everything. Last year, wrong place, wrong time. Got hung out with a caution and ended up finishing 2nd. It's honestly the worst feeling after being so dominant the entire race and leading as many laps as we did. when that caution came out, and I still had a pit, and everybody else had already hit that fuel window. It was like getting punched in the gut, to be honest. But luckily we bounced back to finish second, and Matt, our teammate, ended up winning. Yeah, we're expecting the field. Yeah, we're expecting the field to be a lot tighter than it was last year. Qualifying, we did really, really well. Race pace towards the end of the race, our setup really came to life. But the car hasn't really gone through much changes over the years. Hasn't been a new build, or haven't got really a new tire model. So everybody's kind of on the same page with us. We don't really seem to have that big of an advantage as we did last year, but Chris and I have been grinding out a lot of Indy time, trying to find just, 2,000s here, 1,000th there, the occasional 100th overall in qualifying, and it's taking a toll, but hopefully we can be as dominant as we were last year.
As Bradley Walters comes out in clean track there, Cisco P15, Vic Cordell on pit road as well.
Yeah, Cordell is going to hit pit road. He was in that fight. He was in kind of a group with Joe Branch, kind of at the tail end of that second pack that had kind of fallen off after green flag pit stops. He's going to find his stall right there, the 33 DHL machine. He was kind of in a group, Tim Doyle, Niles Anders, Christian Steele, Joe Branch. They were kind of falling off that top group. They were kind of the last part of that first group. Well, Cordell's going to roll away now. We'll have to see how they cycle out of pit road, but that whole group got split up by the green flag pit stops. We'll have to see if that is the same case as Vinicius Gardello, also going to hit pit road, and Christian Steele.
And talking about Caudill, though, that's a really early stop from him. He pit on lap number 87. That was only about a 20-lap run. That's super early.
It is, but some drivers do this whole game of counting backwards. You count backwards from now, 91 laps, as second time in a row there, Randy. Christian Steele overshoots his pit box. You cannot do that if you want to win an Indy 500.
No, you can't. That's roughly 3 seconds on the racetrack that he's cost himself, and he's going to be pushing hard because he's so far back, trying to find a way through speed to get himself out to the front. Steele, he's not in a position right now to win the race, and fortunately for him, it's not because he's made those mistakes, but he can't make those mistakes in case he puts himself in a position to win the race.
Yeah, and to the people playing dubstep right now, you know where you are. You're in Indiana. This is an Indy 500. Turn the dubstep off. Watch us instead.
It's all I can hear. It's all I can hear.
Oh, wait a minute. Just to bring some life into it, we're going to have to do this. Lap number 111 here in the 2017 Apex Infotech Indy Elite Series Indianapolis 500. As
now
Tim
imagine
Holgate. You go on.
Now imagine that being muffled, getting played through my ceilings right now. Well, this is.
Yeah, but imagine hearing that next door in addition to, and now in your 2017 Indy 500, imagine being Will's neighbor.
Thankfully, they don't actually hear anything that happens except for my voice. But Tim Holgate right now runs himself in that third place, running Trost in second and Kinsella in first. What they want to do right now, Randy, is try and gain time overall compared to Bradley Walters. They're not going to pass him through this sequence of pit stops, but they might be able to close that gap down. Remember, 4.1 seconds.
Yeah, they need to try to make as much time on Bradley Walters as they can, and it's sort of a double-edged sword here, because right now I think that the likes of Kinsella and Kinsella, Trost, and Holgate, they get to reel in Walters when Walters is at his heaviest and they're pretty much at their lightest. About the last 10 laps of their stint, Walters on the first 10 of his. But the thing that's unfortunate is that Walters then has a longer stint on less fuel, and I think for the most part it's just sort of ended up equaling out, which if you're Walters is great. If you're Kinsella, if you're Trost, if you're Holgate, that's really, you have to figure out something in terms of trying to be able to pick up spots. And Cortadello, big move on Andrew Kinsella, and considering he's a lap down right now, possibly a little bit over aggressive.
Yeah, he's a lap down, but don't forget, he pitted earlier. So all of a sudden, these lap passes here, Cisco, they're for a reason, because he wants to maintain his momentum.
That's absolutely the case, but for these lead lap drivers, they got to be, if they could throw the hands out the side of the cockpit, you'd probably be seeing it right now, because they are not terribly happy with Cortadello. And look at Trost, he backs way off of Cortadello there. He's probably just going to try and get a big run here just to pass him and just deal with that car then and there. Will, I don't think he wants anything to do with that lap car right now.
Yeah,
Will, I want to pose a question to you. Talking about Vic Caudill, even though he's not been a competitor, or not really in it for the win for this one, we got some word from Chris Demerit. Official Demerit math says you can make it to lap 114 to pit, and then you can go full tilt on 2 more stops. Caudill could have likely made it to 314, if not very, very close to that. Why would he have pit so early?
I don't think he would have made it to 340, because that doesn't exist.
Well, I mean,
140.
Rossi probably could have.
Yeah, indeed. But what I would say for Caudill is maybe he's trying to play the strategy game in reverse. Maybe he actually wanted to do something to his car, and sometimes, Brandon, it is worth coming in early to give yourself a little bit of laps in clean air to see how your car is going to handle if you're taking out wing and trying to make that car more streamlined. We lost you. Over to you, Cisco.
Well, the one thing I wanted to note that just came over, a couple channels, Tim Holgate, for the second time this race, accidentally got the pit limiter instead of the weight jacker button. So, looks like we found Trano. Looks like he was at the concession stand, Brandon.
I was getting something to eat. Sorry, I was hungry.
Pretty much.
I'd be remapping some buttons if I was at 06 Tim Holgate.
Yeah, that you can't be. Will, we talk about sliding through your pit stall. That's another thing you can't be doing, is hitting that pit limiter instead of the weight jacker if you want to win an Indy 500.
No, and that's the thing as well that's worth noting, is that these drivers have got to have buttons for their pit limiter, the weight jacker up, weight jacker down, anti-roll bar, front up, anti-roll bar, front down, rear up, rear down. That's 7 different buttons you've got mapped on your wheel. If you've got, like, for example, a Logitech G27, then you've got 1 button too less. So that's the thing. Sometimes these drivers have some weird mapping situations, and I had it, for example, that my weight jacket buttons and my anti-roll bar buttons were on my wheel with my G27, but my pit limiter wasn't. After that, I've got Brandon Trace on towards pit road.
Holgate as well.
Yep. So both of them on towards pit road. 60 miles an hour is pit road speed here at Indianapolis Motor Speedway. Up 5 miles an hour from previous years, but sliding down into your pit stalls. One of the things that a lot of drivers have done here today. Brandon Troy's taking it easy and overshoots a little bit. Holgate perfectly in there, Randy.
Yeah, good pit entry there from Holgate. Not a surprise to see Holgate getting perfectly into his pit box. He is one of those guys that is, Holgate's been so picture perfect in the IndyCar for so long. Andrew Kinsella also coming down pit road. Vinicius Cortadello now going to be ahead of that pack and be working on trying to get his spots back. Christian Steele side by side into corner number 1 with Adam Dock, and he's going to be able to pick that position up, I think, no problem. Moves himself back up into that 7th spot. But talking about the strategy right now, Will, if demerit math is correct, which I think is likely, to be honest. If lap number 114 is the mark, I believe that all your leaders, such as Walters, most notably, well, Walters is short of that, but does Walters have enough space that he could do a splash and dash and come out with a lead? I don't think so.
No. Walters will want a pit stop in a caution in about 10 laps time, is what I'm going to say right now. Worth noting, Tim Holgate did get out ahead of Brandon Trost. He had a much better pit stop because Brandon Trost, of course, overshot the pit stall by a minute amount as Tim Doyle and Anders going side by side as well. Anders going to become the beneficiary of that one, moves Anders up into the top 10. We do want to thank IndyCar for all their support here of the Apex Elite IndyCar Series. Don't forget, you can catch the Grand Prix of Indianapolis on ABC and ESPN. That is May 13th. Start time for that one is 3:50 p.m. Eastern Time. You can also catch qualifications of the Indianapolis 500 on ABC, as well as the 101st running of the Indianapolis 500, May 28th from 12 o'clock p.m. Eastern Time on ABC. Of course, radio coverage is available through the IMS radio network as well. So there we are. We are now 120 laps into this motor race. Choice versus Holgate, the closest battle on track, but there are the top 8 along the bottom of the screen. Worth noting, Bradley Walters gained time that time by Cisco. He is now 1.5 seconds faster than what he was previously.
Yeah, he is absolutely flying around this racetrack, Will, but the conversation we're having, you know, we're looking at the numbers right now. That leader, as it sits right now, there's almost no way that he's going to be able to make it. Is Holgate going to pass to the inside end of Trost there? But we're running the numbers. There's probably not a good chance he's going to be able to Rossi himself out of this situation. The question is, though, does the driver know that? Or is the driver going to try and win at Indianapolis?
We don't know. As there comes Brandon Choice once again, past that driver of Tim Holgate. Worth noting, they're only 1 second behind Andrew Kinsella right now. We haven't talked enough about Kinsella. He's doing a sterling job right now on P number 2, Randy.
I think he did something fantastic on pit road that time. Maybe it was a bit of just took a little bit less fuel, but he's been able to put a bit of a gap between himself and Holgate and Trost. And, you know, that may not sound like a lot, but now he can just go out and if he has good fuel number, he can just sit and he can just basically drive that car in clean air, and he can keep his mental game down. He doesn't have to focus every single lap of making sure he has the proper gap behind the likes of Trost or Holgate through the corners when working the aero push. He can just sit out there just in front of them. He can just, you know that they're likely not going to reel him in very, very quickly, and he can just sit, put his pedal to the floor, and do laps. And then he can start running fuel numbers. He can start really thinking what he has to do to try to be the one to win this motor race.
15 drivers of the 28 that started are still running. High-ish attrition again, Randy, but we've only had, 4 cautions here today? 3, 4?
I think the thing is that for the most part they've been big yellows, and we've also had a couple small incidents that did not bring yellows out. Mostly those were single car incidents, but yeah, I mean, we had that big incident which saw, I believe it was Marco Brazil go upside down. Not a lot of attrition in terms of not a lot of big incidents. Unfortunately, we've had this long green flag run through the middle of the race, but enough to take a significant amount of your field out of this one.
Well, we're going to step aside for a few moments here on RaceSpotTV and on iRacing Live. Go side by side. Cisco, we'll see you in a little bit.
Yeah, we'll see you guys. Have fun.
We're going to step aside. We'll be back with more after these messages. You're watching RaceSpotTV on iRacing Live.
Introducing a whole new form of racing to the best online racing simulation in the world. This is Dirt Racing on iRacing.com. Race online at some of America's most legendary dirt tracks, including Eldora and Williams Grove. iRacing is the premier online racing game featuring NASCAR, IndyCar, sports cars, and now World of Outlaws, the leading sanctioning body for dirt racing. iRacing is easy to use and features a centralized ranking system to make sure you have the best experience at any skill level. With a massive inventory of high-precision laser scan tracks and cars with an unmatched dedication to quality and detail, iRacing gives you the most authentic online racing experience available. Thanks to iRacing's dynamic track system, developed specifically for dirt racing, tracks change over the course of a race, just like your favorite dirt track on a Friday or Saturday night. From a slick racing groove all the way up to the cushion, iRacing's dirt tracks deliver non-stop racing action. Partnered with the World of Outlaws, iRacing is your source for the most authentic dirt racing experience available, featuring 4 brand new tracks and 11 new cars, including street stocks, Legends cars, late models, NASCAR trucks, winged and non-winged sprint cars, with much more on the way. Join the Dirt Revolution on iRacing.com and start slinging mud today.
Racing, you wanted the best, you got them 4 abreast, often imitated, never duplicated, the greatest show on dirt, the World of Outlaws.
Hey guys, Christopher Bell here. As you guys know, iRacing is coming out with dirt, and it's been a long time coming. So I'm here today to kind of show you around the sprint cars and hopefully give you some insight for whenever you first drive it. So here we are at Williams Grove, gonna go out and make a couple laps in the 410 wing sprint car. I'm on default setup with a gear change to a 522. As we roll out of the pits, you guys might notice that the car wants to pull left and you have to hold the steering wheel right to go straight. That's normal for a sprint car because you have so much stagger, it's always trying to turn the car left. Once you get up to speed, that goes away. Going down the straightaways, Williams Grove has really long straightaways and really tight corners. The big wings on the sprint cars, it always wants to pull you left into the corner, so it doesn't take much steering wheel input to get the car into the corner. A big key for the wing sprint cars is that they always like to go straight. They don't like to be too sideways. So the less steering wheel input you can have and the straighter you can keep the car, the faster you'll go. As the track slickens off, you'll be able to play with the setup to get the car driving even straighter yet. And that's a couple laps around Williams Grove. So here we are at Eldora Speedway. I'm on baseline setup with a gear change to a 511. As we roll out at Eldora Speedway, one thing that you'll notice is that the corners are really sweeping and it's almost a circular shape. The big thing about Eldora is just keeping that steering wheel straight. The straighter you keep the wheel and the less steering input that you give the car, the faster you'll go. The fast line around Eldora will be right around the inside wall in the corners and then with a big arc towards the outside walls down the straightaways. Then once the track slicks off, you'll be able to follow the groove up towards the outside wall, where the famous Eldora High Line comes into play. So now we're at Volusia Speedway Park with the 410 wing sprint car. I'm on baseline setup with a 511 gear, the same as what we ran at Eldora. Whenever you roll out on the racetrack, you'll notice that Volusia is similar to Eldora. They have long sweeping corners, and it's kind of circular in shape. At Volusia, whenever the track is fast, you'll want to be right down against the concrete wall in the corners with a nice big arc down the straightaway. Whenever the track starts to slicken up, you'll be able to follow the groove up higher and higher. Whenever you get into turns 3 and 4 though, the groove might get up onto the shelf, which is the flatter section of the racetrack, and then it becomes very difficult to exit turn 4 without getting into the wall. And that's just one of the characteristics of Volusia Speedway Park. Hope you guys have fun.
Next week, it is the turn of the IR05s. We go classic IndyCar racing here on RaceSpotTV and on iRacing Live. The car that was used in IndyCar's rebuilding period. The car that was used for the reunification between the Indy Racing League and the Champ Car World Series. Sorry, I take that back. Wait. I've got to do this properly. The Bridgestone presents a Champ Car World Series powered by Ford.
You mean kart?
The Bridgestone presents a Champ Car World Series powered by Ford. That's going to be next Sunday. That'll be 5 p.m. GMT. Catch it here on your home of Indianapolis, RaceSpotTV. As well, we've got lots happening and not a lot happening all at the same time. There's one of these misnomers that we talk about here, Randy, because there's a lot happening. That's Bradley Walters is continuing to pull out that gap right now over Andrew Kinsella, but Kinsella's being caught by Holgate, being caught by Brandon Troyce, and they see him and it's like, what's up? What I do? Here we go. They're going for P number 2.
Yeah, they are slowly reeling in Kinsella, but you're right. There's a lot happening. Oh, it's Tollgate, I think, very close to that wall off of corner number 2, and that's, I think, a little bit what I was talking about this was somewhat smart of Kinsella being able to get that gap because he's less likely to make mistakes out here in this clean air. But, you know, it is almost sort of that middle of the night stage of a 24-hour-long endurance race almost, isn't it, Will, where for the drivers and for the teams, there's a lot happening. There's a lot of fuel calculations and tires and who do we think is going to be strong near the end of the race. Is it going to be Walters? Is it going to be Holgate? Is it going to be Trost? Walters, by the way, down on the pit road. Is it going to be Kinsella? But for us right now on the racetrack, it is just, well, not on the racetrack, it is just a bit of a waiting game, waiting to see what happens.
Yeah, Walters again, a little bit early on towards pit road, trainer, compared to what we were expecting.
Yeah, he's on that opposite strategy. He's got low fuel. He's got a pit earlier than everybody else, but it seems to be working for him a little bit. He comes out in clean air. He doesn't really come out in traffic, so he doesn't really seem to have to put on downforce, you know, to work through the traffic.
He does, however, in my opinion, need a yellow, but he needs a yellow at the right time, Brandon, because as you know, get out at the wrong time, it's worse than having to make another pit stop.
It is. If a yellow comes out, he can get back on the same strategy as Trost or Holgate, and it becomes anybody's ball game. You know, his lead gets erased, pack comes back together, it becomes a draft fest again, and you don't know what can happen.
But at the same time, Randy, you've got to say, any driver who's led as many laps as Bradley Walters, over 50 here today, that's the fear factor setting in for these other drivers. They know that not only can he lead out front, he can pull away, which no other driver here today has been able to do so, as we ride on board of Tim Doyle versus Niles Andrews for being number 9.
Yeah, those guys still fighting up amongst your top 10. I will say, though, I don't necessarily think Walters can pull his way as easily as you're saying, because it's important to note, we saw Walters pull that gap, but we saw him do that after that yellow where he stayed out in everyone else's pit. So he's out there on a lighter race car. That's, I think, what allowed him to really be able to stretch that gap over the rest of the field. So if the field gets restacked up, I don't think he's going to, but I think what you said, Will, is absolutely right, because what's really sketchy here for Walters is that if this yellow flag comes out either too soon after he pits or too shortly after everyone else does, he ends up in a situation where he's going to have to restart down near the end of the field. I think he has about a 15 or so, maybe closer to 20 lap window where the yellow came out, where the yellow can come out, and he's got about a half dozen laps on either end where if the yellow comes out then, it's just a disaster.
We've got side by side on pit road right now. That was Vinicius Cortidello versus Christian Steele. Let's see, is Steele going to get onto his pit box? Okay. No shot required for anyone playing the Christian Steele drinking game there, Trano. Twice in a row, he overshot his pit stall. That time, he's okay. Well, let's see whether he can get out ahead of Vinicius Cortidello. And the answer to that question is going to be, it does look like he can, because Cortidello had a very long stop there. I think you may well have got a speeding penalty.
Yeah, I'm trying to figure out who was the cause of that. I'm not really sure. I'm not sure if he got a speeding penalty or not, but he had a very, very long pit stop there.
Yeah, 22 seconds after Cortidello. And that's the thing. First half of the motor race, Randy, you can recover from that. My teammate, John Porzick, for example, a couple of years ago, he did it on the last pit stop of the day after running in P number 2. At that point, there's nothing you can do. Your race
he just came up right in front of Tim Doyle.
As Tim Doyle there just almost runs into the rear Cortidello, Randy.
Yeah, I mean, there is a certain extent you almost have, I would say the amount of time you have to be able to make an error like that and be able to bounce back from it, for at least for an Indy 500, is 100 laps. You have, if you make that mistake in the first 100, you can bounce back. If it happens in the last 100, unless something crazy happens in your favor, unless everyone out ahead of you makes some big mistake, or, you know, if you get a super favorable caution where, you know, it just flies in a certain way where you end up with the lead for some reason, you can almost bounce back that way. But out there on the racetrack, very hard to do so in the second half of one of these races, and especially where we are now, quickly approaching 50 to go. At this point on, you have to be perfect.
Yeah, and the thing is now, Brandon, I just had a look at the replay of Tim Dalton. It's like someone coming out onto the interstate and blending immediately into the fast lane, when what they should do is stick in their own.
Yeah, you're not expecting it. You know, you're coming out of the pits, you've got that whole bottom part of the track that you think they're going to use, but, you know, the draft is so important that you come up and kind of close the door on somebody. But if you're going 30 or 40 miles an hour quicker, you almost run over them, and that's almost what happened right there.
Tony Sharon and pin number 8, scrapping out of Dan Lee Edge. Your top 8 drivers are on the long strategy game here. That would mean they have to make one more pit stop after this one. The drivers on the alternate strategy: Bradley Walters, Adam Dock, Justin Steele, Vic Cordell, and Vinicius Portodello are actually now classified as the last driver running in this event. Well, that's crazy. We've got 15 drivers still running, and that's the thing, Randy. At Indy, you don't expect the entire field to finish because it is such a hard racetrack. Yes, as they once said in the promo, it's a rounded rectangle that to many people looks like it's a very simple racetrack. You try and do a lap of Indy in a car that doesn't handle well, you push up in turn number 1, you think you saved it. You then come down to turn number 2, you've overheated those 2 tyres on the right-hand side, you hit the marbles, and before you know it, bam, into the wall.
Well, Fernando Alonso, I think, described it best after his rookie orientation when talking to Robin Miller. He said, on the simulator, I was flat out. It felt easy. Marco went out there. He shook down the car before I got into it. He said he was flat through 1. I got out there on the racetrack, and it was a lot more narrow than it was in the simulator or that it looked on TV. My foot wasn't syncing up with my brain. I couldn't keep the car flat through turn 1 and 2. This is a very difficult racetrack at speed. It's not just a regular oval, and it's very easy to make mistakes. It's historically been like that. A lot of drivers, including AJ Foyt, have won races here by 1, 2, even 3 laps.
And that's the thing, Brandon. We talk about how to keep your foot down. That is nothing here today compared to what we're going to have to do when we go to qualifying for the 8th annual iRacing Indianapolis 500, because quite simply, it's 4 laps of perfection we need to do to make the top split. And these setups, they're not easy to drive. They are twitchy, they are scary, but when you head yourself into one, you've got to find the apex, and you cannot get your foot off that gas pedal.
Exactly. Any qualifying set that I've ever driven for Indy has always been on the edge of out of control, and that's the only way you can go fast. You know, you put that setup on the edge, you know, you get that speed. But if you try to build, you know, comfortableness into the setup, you know, you make it where you feel like you're in control, then you're not going fast.
Yeah, as simple as that. Oh, Niles Anders, all 4 wheels that time by outside of the white line. So that one definitely, Randy, has to go to race control.
100%. There's no way that they cannot be a black flag and race control. They're already on it before he's even in turn 3. They've seen it. They reviewed it. Niles Anders, you have a 30-second stop and go. Enjoy the last 55 laps of your Indianapolis 500 for the tail of the field, and he almost loses it off of 4, and he's actually coming to a stop. This might bring out a yellow. Oh, that was almost very bad by Niles Anders. I would have called that extraordinarily unsporting if he had caused that yellow there.
Yeah, and there is Niles Anders. You can clearly see all 4 wheels outside of that white line. Race control reviewed it. We're going to keep it on this replay for the moment there. And well, Niles Anders is race over. You have got Trace on pit road. You've got Holgate on pit road.
About just wrecked Holgate.
Return to that one in just 1 second, shall we? And there's a look at Niles Anders. He actually caught that car down at turn number 4. He got it slid onto the brakes. Now, he would have been off the racing service, but let's go and have a look at...
Oh, and Trost, I think, will likely have a speeding penalty.
Coming out of pit road?
No, coming onto pit road. He almost hit Holgate on the pit entry, and then he was about 15 to 20 miles an hour over the limit. The limit here is 60. He was doing 80 out the cones.
Well, let's have a look then. On board with Brandon Trost. He dove in very late, and you see...
Well, Holgate's gone. He's got one.
Oh, my word. He very almost hit there, Tim Holgate. I mean, you got to give kudos to Brandon Trost in one way for slowing that car down. But this isn't the 1980s. You can't be flat onto the pit road anymore here, Brandon. And as a consequence, 25.7 second pit stop, speeding penalty, say goodbye to Brandon Trost unless there is a caution. There's about 3 drivers now that all want a caution for 3 very different reasons.
Yeah, as a driver...
Go ahead.
I was just gonna say, as a driver, you know, we're always pushing it to get on a pit road as hard as we can, you know, make up that 1 to 2 tenths, because that's a position you can gain on pit road. But you saw right there, Trost pushed it just a little too far, trying to get all he could to get around Holgate, and it cost him.
I was going to say before Brandon there, I don't think Trost was intending to come down pit road. I think Trost just in the mindset of I'm just doing whatever Holgate is doing so I can keep this draft. And he saw Holgate, he decided to come down pit road, and Trost is about it's odd. It's almost like you realize he's pitting about a half a second too late, and because of that got the car slowed down half a second late. If he had just been able to brake that little bit earlier, likely not even an issue there. It was just that little bit that made that be so sketchy.
Yeah, and I'll tell you one thing. If that was official Indy 500 rules, Brandon Trost would have actually got a penalty because he danced across that white line. That white line, the same way as pit exit, you don't cross it. You shouldn't cross that that line on the way on towards pit road. So a little bit of a misdemeanor there for Brandon Trost. He gets away with that, but a 15-second penalty is the consequence of him coming towards pit road too late. And Randy, Cisco talked about it earlier. In the NASCAR Monster Energy Cup Series, their cones are far higher up to the fact that you're literally going to be turning and braking coming out of turn number 4. You don't have to do that in an Indy car, but you try and brake late, you're always going to suffer.
Yeah, the cones here in the Indy cars, because the cars are going so much quicker, they don't really have time, do they, to ever get that car slowed down coming off of 4. So because of that, the speed limit cones are well past that pit wall. The NASCAR cones, they stick out a bit because those cars are going so much slower through the corners that they can get that car slowed down and get it out of the way to a certain extent. But now, let's really talk about, we've lost a couple of our competitors here in the last couple laps. Niles Anders with that penalty, he's gotten out of the car, and of course, just right there, Brandon Trost, that 15-second penalty puts it way down the order. It really is right now Bradley Walters, Andrew Kinsella, and Tim Holgate who are really fighting out for the win at this point. It's Bradley Walters, who we think doesn't have the fuel to make it to the end here with about 48 laps to go. Kinsella and Holgate seem to be the favorites, but Kinsella at the same point, we know that we think he might have short-filled considering the gap he had over Holgate and Trost after that last pit stop. It might be Tim Holgate's race to lose at one point if it stays green.
I've got to ask the question, Randy. Do you think that Brandon Trost even wins the John Porzak I lost my race on pit road award of the year?
Maybe. That's a very big maybe right there. I would actually argue it might go to, if it ends up coming down to it, it could go to Bradley Walters. I think Trost's error was a lot bigger, and I'm going to say this. I think Bradley Walters may lose this race on strategy, but I don't think it's on a strategy that you could ever have predicted. I don't necessarily think that Walters would have made a mistake. In his mind, he's always, if this race stays green and Kinsella or Holgate win this race, he's going to always say, what if I had just pit like everybody else? I don't think he can think like that, though, because who can actually predict that a race, let's see, when did we last go green? Our last caution period happened on lap number 57. We've been green since then. Who could ever in their right mind predict a race going green from lap 57 to lap 200? It may not be a mistake that gets Bradley Walters or takes Bradley Walters away from the win. It may just be a strategy call at a bad window.
Almost 100 laps then, scored green in a row here in the Apex Infotech Indy Elite Series Indianapolis 500. Brandon, that is kind of what we expect. Early cautions, long green flag run. There is some driver thinking, you know what I'd really like right now? A yellow.
Yep. It happened to us last year. You know, we went green for, I don't know, 100 or so laps, and we were all looking in good shape to get the win. but caution came out and everything changed, and you know that's exactly what could happen here. You never know.
As Andrew Kinsella versus Tim Holgate. Looks to be like Tim Holgate's trying to save a bit of fuel right now behind Andrew Kinsella there.
Tim Holgate, fuel saving? Never. He's the king of fuel saving. I mean, that doesn't shock me at all. Even though he's definitely the clear favorite, and he's likely got people in his ear saying as much, he's always going to say, I'll just sit behind Andrew then and save myself a little bit more fuel. And this is the thing that's interesting. You have now Kinsella, who's in a situation where he's short-filled a bit. Kinsella would love to be the one fuel saving right now over Holgate, and by Holgate doing this, he's saving a bit more fuel, and that's actually stretching the advantage he has over Andrew. If I were Andrew, actually, the best thing Kinsella, I think, could do would be to feign a mistake and get behind that 06 machine.
Yeah, Christian Steele is up into P number 5 as well, Randy. I mean, he's had a bit of a comeback after some issues earlier on in this event. 2 issues on pit road, of course, here today. But he is now in that 5th place. Brandon Trost, to give you an update on him, he is running in P number 8. Here he is, however, 28 seconds behind your race lead. If the yellow does come out, he's not too bad though. P8 is easily recoverable in even 10 laps.
Yeah, Trost will definitely pick up some more spots. He's now P9 is what it scores here, but he's having Nicholas Cordello. Well, no, P9, he hasn't come back across the stripe. Is he P8? Did someone pit 19? Say it regardless. We'll say P8. Here comes Vinicius right now down the front straightaway.
Okay, now he's P9.
Yeah, see? You're correcting me. He's P9 the entire time. God will. But yeah, I mean, he's going to sit here with Cordello, and Cordello has a bit of pace into 2. Oh, very, very late move from Trost. Cordello going to get very, very tight and get up into gray, almost pushes into the wall. But talk about yellows needing to come out for some drivers. That was almost a yellow that came out. The Vinicius now going to look to the inside of that 007 machine into 3. He's going to get that 8th spot back, and Trost will stay in 9th.
Yeah, and let's talk about actually those marbles building out on the outside line. It's making it harder and harder to hold that outside line, Brandon, over the course of the fact we've been 100 laps now, green in a row.
Yeah, the marbles here have become very real. You get off of this black line up in the gray stuff, and it's very easy to get in the wall, and you saw it right there, that whole incident between Trost and Vinicius could have been really bad. One of them could hit the wall, taking out the other. The other one could have gotten tight on the inside and hit the other one. It's just, you get out of this rubber line so far into this race, it's dangerous.
Well, there is Brandon Trost remaining in P number 8. Christian Steele versus Adam Dock is going on for P number 4 in this event as well. Christian Steele last time, but again, he's just sticking behind. No one wants to overtake each other. It's like Sunday Night Skippies all over again here, Andy.
Yeah, I mean, it is that weird phase of the race, isn't it? Where we saw it through the last the first 130, 140 laps. Everyone basically, just passing lap after lap after lap, the car in front of them if they were only in a 2 to 3 car train. But it's just basically shifted here in the last 50 laps. Everyone's trying to think about fuel. I'd actually say, though, if you're Christian Steele, I don't necessarily think you have a reason to sit here and just save fuel. Yeah, you have Joe Branch and Vic Cotto behind you, but I think Steele is quicker than that 28 and the 33 machine could outpace them. I think Steele needs to try to reel in gaps and maybe take advantage of the fact that the 14 and the 06 are saving fuel out in front of them. Granted, at the same point, the 78 machine needs a yellow anyways, so maybe saving gas now, even if it may not pick up a position now, if a yellow does come out, he might be able to play that advantage card then, as we're quickly approaching final pit stops. Bradley Walters likely also coming down the next 7 to 8 laps?
Indeed so. As we are now down into the last 20% here of 25% even of this, the Apex Infotech Indianapolis 500 on RaceSpotTV. We'll step aside for a couple of moments. We'll be back with more after this.
Watch Ernie, go, go, go. Car right. Jam it. Get ready. Dude, more heads up than that. Jeez.
Right on the back wing. Can he make it happen?
Push like hell. We gotta stay in front of these guys.
Both drivers on the push to pass. Contact in the pit lane.
All right, 60. Let that eagle fly. What do I do? What happened? Push here. Push hard. Let's go get this guy. Car outside. Through behind you. Tell. Clear outside. Good job. Just spun behind you. I don't know if you got him or not.
He got out of it so hard. Look at these guys are all over the back.
Full throttle.
IndyCar.
The in and out lap.
What's next?
Come and get the checkers, big boy. Oh, baby, that was good. He hit me. Inside, outside, outside.
2017 Verizon IndyCar Series. See what's next.
Randy Walters then on pit road as we back here. Walters out and away. He can't make it. Randy, he cannot make it with the amount of fuel he's just taken off.
He might be able to make it, but it's going to be hard fuel saving. Trino, what? I just want a quick confirmation. What's the longest you can go if you fuel save hard?
That's a tough one. Demeric could probably confirm. He had to try to save last year. I think he went 33, maybe 34.
Yeah.
And Bradley's got to go, what, 35, 36 here?
Yeah, so probably not. You're probably right.
And he's in clean air, so...
Yeah, he definitely can't save, get the win. He might somehow, some way be able to get to the stripe, but he's not going to do so competitively. If we stay green, it's all between Holgate and Kinsella. If he gets a yellow, though, Bradley will also be in the game as well.
Also worth noting, we talked about Andrew Kinsella. He's dropped down to P number, well, it was P3. Now it's P number 2, Randy, partially because of the fact that we think he's fuel saving as well.
Yeah, because we saw that short stint where he basically just took a little bit less gas than Trost and Holgate and got himself out of pit road a little bit quicker. At least that's what we're thinking. It's also possible that Kinsella just flat out had a very, very good pit cycle and got out a little bit ahead. We haven't really talked about that very much, so it is, but then again, we saw Kinsella in second place. He gave it to Tim Holgate, and Tim Holgate has been able to stretch the gap. So Kinsella's sitting back there and he's definitely fuel saving. My question is, though, if Kinsella had to fuel save to make it to the end, considering how many laps had gone green, he waited 10 laps to get into that third spot and let Tim Holgate just fuel save behind him. I think no matter what, even if he had the gas before or after, I think Holgate's going to come off of pit road in front of Andrew Kinsella.
You've got to think here. There's so many different storylines going on. You've got Tim Holgate, of course, looking to establish his footprint for the month of May. Andrew Kinsella has never won a big time in the Indianapolis 500. Bradley Walters has never won a big time in the Indianapolis 500. Here's a statistic for you, Randy. As Nick Cordell's on pit road, only one driver from Indiana has ever won what we call the big time Indy 500s. They are, of course, the RAC Indy 500, the 16th Street Indianapolis 500, the ISWC Indy 500, as well as this, the Apex Infotech Indy 500. There have been others over the years that have run Indy 500s, but not at this level. And only one driver has ever won from Indiana. That was Joe Branch a year ago in the 16th Street Indy 500.
Yeah, and I'm sure if you're Joe Branch, that's a huge, that's a big, that's a big accolade, let's say, to have on your resume, especially being from Indiana. It means a little bit more for you if you're from that state, doesn't it? Just knowing that that's your home race, that's your home track to a certain extent. You know, you grew up watching these cars, you know, for years and years, maybe even seen them at the actual racetrack, and then to win one, even a simulated one, that's just big. It'd be a little bit like, say, you know, a certain Jonathan Battelle winning a Le Mans 24.
Well, yeah, indeed so. As Adam Dock.
Although the universe would implode if that happened.
Yeah, Adam Dock's on pit road. I think iRacing would literally just like stop working. Simple as that. Adam Dock's on pit road then, making himself his final pit stop of the day, Brandon.
Sorry, I was looking at an incident that Trost just had a couple laps ago. He was in the short shooter 3 and 4, and his car just shut off and didn't refire until almost back into turn 1. Just trying to figure out why.
Get ourselves a replay of this one then. Let's have a look on board with Brandon Trost and see what he can capture us. It does look like he's doing something. But
So we got a word from race control after that happened. Chris Demerit over the race control channel very officially said, "I'd like to keep the shenanigans to a minimum, please." And he did that right in front of Bradley Walters as well. That is almost unexplainable.
Let's have a look then. We're still riding on board with Brandon Trost, seeing what we can find out. A lot of these drivers will be on pit road in about 6 laps time. Here's Brandon Trost again. 2, 3 and 4. There we are. That was right in front of Bradley Walters. And it looks as though that's not even pit limiter stuff there, because, well, the revs will be different, Brandon. But I don't know.
Yeah, the rear light didn't come on either, so it's not like he hit the pit limiter. I'm confused. I don't understand why that happened.
And the car held constant speed, so it's not like you could say it was just a hardware failure either, because if you lift out of the throttle on these, the speed drops a lot more quickly than that. And actually, considering how much he initially slowed down, he was on the brakes.
Brandon Trost, he wasn't even coming towards pit road either. I think that should be a warning flag right there for the 007 machine in some place. We have had incidents in the past, of course, when people trying their hardest to force a yellow. That happened back in the 2013 iRacing Indianapolis 500 that I was a part of. And it's always sad to see when politics get in the way. Andrew Kinsella versus Tim Holgate still going on as Danley enters from pit road from P number 8.
Yeah, standard stop coming in for Danley Inch, I think, coming in from the 8th spot. He scored 1 lap down, so definitely not the day that someone like Danley Inch would want to see, but the fact that he's made it this far, and heck, he's going to pick up a lot of spots from where he started. He qualified that car in that 22nd position. 14 cars scored 1 lap down. The next car is Niles Anders, 28 laps down, so he's guaranteed himself a top 14. Not too shabby, I think, if you're Danley Inch.
No, and there are some people saying maybe just the ignition turned off in Brandon Trost's car. That is a possibility, especially for those drivers that try to use the in-car chat here. Let's go on board then for a couple of corners. Andrew Kinsella battling for the race lead right now. RaceSpotTV, fan emoji. Well, Kinsella's into his pit box then for his final stop of the day with 25 laps to go here, Andy.
Yeah, so Andrew Kinsella deciding to come down on pit road a little bit early. This is also a bit of a stretch, actually. We talked about, 33 laps being able to do it if you save. Well, actually, no, I take that back. I'm doing my math wrong. It's going to be 24 laps to the end. This is what happens when you get an education in the United States, folks. But still, 24 laps to the end of the race for Andrew Kinsella. And I'm actually going to pitch this back over to Mr. Trano. We've been talking about Holgate versus Kinsella, the fact that we think Holgate might have the advantage. But if you were in that little two-car tango situation, Trano, would you rather be the one to pit early or be the one to pit late?
It all depends on how much fuel he got. I mean, Kinsella, I don't know. I think he can make it, right? I did the math right?
Yeah,
He's
24.
good. So, okay, so Holgate's supposed to pit, right?
Yeah.
So Holgate may be trying to stretch the lead out because he's got lower fuel than Kinsella. But then it comes back around to where Kinsella's got the lower amount of fuel and Holgate's got the heavier load. It may equal itself out. Holgate may be stretching this lead out because he's on lower fuel right now and Kinsella's got the heavier load, but you never know. You got to see what happens when Holgate comes out after his pit stop.
Tim Doyle's just pitted. 9.7 second pit stop for him. Over the bump and out and away, Randy.
Clean stop for Tim Doyle. Pretty much textbook. Get in, get your fuel, get back out, get back up to speed. Still all eyes on that 06 machine who comes down on the pit road now.
So it's just wrecked it on pit entry.
And Trost
right in front of Holgate.
Oh my word. Let's have a replay. Let's have a look then on board of Brandon Trost. This is through turn number 3. Let's listen in. He was never going to make that onto pit road, I have to say. He was, Brandon, you and I have done so many pit stops here at Indy. It is impossible to come on towards pit road at the speed he was coming on towards pit road there. You see that you've got Tim Holgate behind him about to come on towards pit road. And Trost, I don't know, was he not paying attention there? He broke so late, it's unbelievable.
That would have been he's done that twice in 2 pit lane entries now. He almost took out Holgate the last time, remember?
Yeah. Please put your pitchforks to one side. Christian Steele right now versus Joe Branch. That one's going on for P number 4 on track as well. They are both done pit stops. Steele should be good enough to go to the end of this motor race. In fact, he is good enough to go. Branch is good enough to go. The one driver who isn't good to the end is Bradley Walters right now.
Yeah, and right now, if you're Bradley Walters, you have to be kicking yourself. You have a 10-second advantage, 20 laps left in the race, and you're a half a dozen or maybe closer to 10 laps short of making out on fuel. Also equally important if it stays green, Tim Holgate and Andrew Kinsella. That gap comes out at about 0.8 of a second when they come out of pit lane. That is in favor of Tim Holgate. Kinsella does not have the draft, so he's going to have to try to find a way to get to the back of that 06 machine on nothing but pace alone.
Christian Steele versus Adam Dock then versus Joe Branch. 3 drivers separated by 0.4 of a second. Less than 20 laps to go, and here comes Dock. Past 1, past 2, in towards turn number 1. Thank you very much. Just like working at Walmart. Let's get 2 for 1 there, Brandon.
Yeah, that was a really good move.
Well, Brandon knows about 3 for 1 into 1.
Yes.
Did that last year?
Yes. We've seen that.
That was just some pure luck, though. I don't know.
Hey, you're the fastest car all day, just pure luck.
I don't know what you're talking about.
But this is the thing. We are now down to 20 to go, so let's ramp up the energy a little bit, because we know that Bradley Walters is a one strategy. Let's be honest here, Andrew Kinsella is still within a shot of winning this motor race because he's only 0.7 of a second behind Tim Holgate, and little by little, he's been closing in that gap, and he's gained a 1.5 over the previous 2 laps. What's he going to do when they come past the straight? Once again, we'll get the graphic along the bottom of the screen. Anything more than 0.5 of a second, and this could be a fascinating finish here. Well, it's another 0.03 of a second Little by little, he's only got to make about another 10th and a half, and he'll be right there in the draft, Randall.
Yeah, he doesn't have a lot more that he really has to reel in. And the best part is that when he starts just getting that little hint of the draft, he's not going to really be getting too much of that dirty air either. And especially these guys are going to be on relatively new tires to fight to the end of the race. So going to be a fun little handful end of the race, let's say, when they get there. The other thing to keep in mind, I don't think they're going to have any traffic at all to deal with. Because you look out in front of Tim Holgate, it is an absolutely clear racetrack out in front. You see one car just in front going through the short chute. That's Tony showing. That's about probably 15 or so seconds up the road. Actually, maybe a little bit less than that, maybe 10. I don't think they're going to make up that advantage until they get there. He's only about a 10th and a half or so off the pace of Holgate. Last time by, just keeping an eye on the lap times, Holgate stretches 200s back out.
Yeah, Bradley just had an incident a couple minutes ago. Tim Holgate got alongside of him on the inside of the short chute of 1 and 2, and Bradley got up in the marbles, and he got into the wall of a turn 2 a little bit.
As Bradley Walters there, you can see him, he is working himself through traffic right now. Again, into turn number 2. So let's see if we can replay this one a little bit and show you what happened in the lap previous. Turn down in towards turn number 1. There is Tim Doyle. You can see quite a bit of damage there to Tim Doyle's car running in P number 8. There's the marble through turn number 1 for Bradley Walters. And that is the worst thing you ever have, training. You try and attack a corner, and there just is nothing going your way.
Yeah, you get up in the marbles, and the car just becomes like it's almost on ice. There's no grip. There's nothing you can do. You just gotta pray you don't hit that wall.
Well, as it stands, Bradley Walters still needs a caution. Of course, what he doesn't want to be is the caution itself. Consider close that gap to within 6 tenths of a second. It's eked back out to 3/4 of a second right now. You're going to stay on board for the moment with Bradley Walters because he's struggling to get past right now. And I've got a feeling that Walters, that last pit stop, took all the arrow away. Here he comes then back down to the inside of Tim Doyle. Thank you very much. But he needs still some luck here, this Bradley Walters, because otherwise he's going to have to pit under green. That's what I said at the top of this broadcast, Randy. None of these big-time Indy 500s have ever finished under yellow.
By the looks of things, the way this entire last 3/4 of the race has gone, I think it's unlikely we're going to get one. There's really not that many cars out there still running. Right now, the second closest pack for a position that I would say really matters is going to be for Christian Steele, Adam Dock, and Joe Branch. They're fighting for 4th, 6th, and 6th on the racetrack. That's a train of cars separated by just 3/10 of a second out there. And I actually think for Bradley Walters, if a caution comes out at this point, I don't necessarily think he can make it to the end because he's on a 10-lap differential, and while saving under yellow, you can save quite a bit of fuel. What he needed was to get on the same fuel strategy for this point. But now, if a yellow does come out, there's no way the likes of Holgate, Kinsella, Steele, Dock, and Branch ever come down pit road. I don't think Walters can make it to the end regardless of what happens.
Well, what you do basically, Brandon, is the second the yellow comes out, you clutch it, and you don't use a single bit of fuel throughout that entire run under yellow. And he might run out in turn number 4 on the final lap.
Yeah, I think he had to save, 2 laps of fuel? And I don't know what the math is for green laps and caution laps, but as soon as that caution come out, yeah, I'd be clutching it and put it in fuel map 8, do everything you possibly can to save as much as you can and make it to the finish. But even then, I don't know if he's got enough fuel.
Ironically, what I'd also do is I'd get behind Tim Doyle right now and Vinicius Cortadello and let them pull you around the racetrack because you can save quite a bit right now. And this pace that Bradley Walters has, he could save a couple of laps, but of course a couple of laps isn't enough right now. The gap between Bradley Walters and Tim Holgate, though, down to 8.2 seconds. Realistically, Bradley Walters will finish this race in P number 7 if there is no yellow right now.
That's really where we're going to expect him to come down because he's not going to take any fuel, not going to take any tires. Surely he'll be back out there.
He will take fuel. Won't take any tires.
Much fuel, not much fuel. It's only going to be a few seconds. Sorry, I misspoke there. But that's going to actually turn up, and that's going to end up probably being about he'll either come out with that 3-car pack of Steele, Dock, and Branch. We'll have an exciting 4-car battle to the end, or likely somewhere between them and Vic Caudill.
Exactly. So, ladies and gentlemen, once again, we want to say thank you to our friends over at IndyCar for everything that they do for this community. And don't forget, you can catch the Grand Prix of Indianapolis. That will be next Saturday on ABC at 3:30 p.m. ET time for the telecast to start. And then, of course, afterwards, you can catch yourself qualifying for the 101st run of the Indianapolis 500 when the race, May 28th at 11 a.m. ET time from the webcast to start. And 12:21 is on the green flag. Due the prize. The greatest day in motorsports, the Monaco Grand Prix, the Indianapolis 500, and the Coca-Cola 600. But there's not only that, there's so much more that happens on the greatest day of racing, May 28th, 2017. And while Randy, we talk about being the greatest day in racing, it's not just the big three that happens. There's so much more as well.
There's so much racing that happens really any weekend. Local tracks in the United States run every single weekend, and I'm sure there's other club and let's say ladder series that run throughout the world every single weekend. And let's see, does Bradley Walters look at pit lane yet? No, he doesn't. He stays out again, working lap number 193. Interestingly enough to me, Tim Doyle actually is just burying himself under Bradley Walters' rear wing every single time around this racetrack. Interesting to note, Doyle and Holgate, they are teammates. Doyle may be playing a little mental game just in favor for his teammate, but I think if you're Walters, you're likely not really that worried about Tim Doyle behind. You're just, if you're Walters, you're probably praying for a yellow, because actually, let's actually think about that. If a yellow comes out late, even if Walters can't make it to the end, 7 cars on the lead lap, he's not just out of it quite yet.
Yeah, what you do is bring him towards pit road, put fresh tyres on him, and hope for the best over the last few laps. Well, Christian Steele versus Adam Dock versus Joe Branch, that still remains to be 4, 5, and 6. Realistically, the final step of the podium, knowing that Bradley Walters has to come on towards pit road. There is Walters. He's not due in this lap. Arguably, he has to run as long as he possibly can in case the yellow does come out. But after he gets to 32 laps, he's going to be worried in case he runs out of fuel, because you don't want to be in a situation where you want to come towards pit road and the pits are closed, Randy.
Exactly. I mean, it is one of those situations that, you finally decide to make your pit stop, and he's coming in right now. This is going to be the splash new leaders no matter what happens. If a yellow flies or if it doesn't, Holgate and Kinsella are going to be fighting for it when they go into one this time by.
You know what the heartbreaking thing is there, Randy? That was a perfect entrance towards pit road.
It's been a perfect race for Bradley Walters, hasn't it? I mean, have we seen anyone run a more flawless race throughout the entire thing? And that's what my thing. That at lap number 157, that's far too early, in my opinion, to just call that a strategy mistake.
Yeah, and for me, Bradley Walters hasn't put a foot wrong in this race, except for some of his strategy calls. Otherwise, he would clearly be the driver finishing in victory lane here today. No one has had as flawless a race as Bradley Walters, and the reason I say that is because Tim Holgate has been in the wars a little bit in this event today, and Andrew Kinsella, with 5 laps to go, still 8 tenths of a second back. Realistically for Kinsella now, it looks like that he is fading out of this event, Randy.
He really is. It's not looking good for him. Inside of 5 laps to go at the Indianapolis Motor Speedway, we saw him get to about 6/10 of a second behind Tim Holgate, and he just hasn't been able to close that gap up since losing it, and now into turn 3 for the 196th time. Going to be coming to 4 laps to go when they get to the stripe. If Andrew Kinsella is maybe saving a little bit of fuel, he may have short-filled a little bit to maintain the gap to Holgate. He needs to put that thing to full fuel trim now, pedal to the metal. Holgate's got a little bit of traffic that might slow him down. Try to reel in that gap any way you can. Time's running out.
Oh my word, Tim Holgate. A big wiggle for him. And this race all again is wide open. Any little moment in Indianapolis could be the difference maker. And all of a sudden, Tim Holgate versus Andrew Kinsella through traffic is a thing. We're on board with Kinsella. They've both got to get through the cars as they go through them. And Kinsella right now is back in this motor race, Randy.
One little mistake is what we've been talking about all race long. One slight miscalculation, one error with the traffic, and suddenly a sure win is gone. And Tim Holgate went from a second ahead of Andrew Kinsella to now just barely over a tenth over Kinsella with 3 laps to go.
Well, they've got to get past this other piece of lap traffic first. I had shades there of Charlie Kimball and that driver, of course, of J.R. Hildebrand on the final lap of the Indianapolis 500 back in 2011. But now Kinsella is there in the mix, and I think that Kinsella is going to try and use this lap traffic as a pick. They're both likely, though, to get past them into turn number 1. What you've got to hope is that lap traffic is going to let both of them go past. It does. Fantastic job. Here's Kinsella then to the race lead with just now 2 laps to go. Here we go, side by side, and it's going to be Holgate holding the outside line, Kinsella down low as they go through the back straightaway for the penultimate time. Kinsella leads this motor race. Grandstand finish sets it up, Randy.
Down the back straightaway into 3 they come. Andrew Kinsella, your new race leader. Tim Holgate, I think he trimmed his car out on the last pit stop, Will. It doesn't seem to like dirty air as he goes into 3 looking for all the clean air he can get. Through and off of 4, he gets a bit of a run, but it's not a big one. But if it's trimmed out, he'll have a big run into 1. White flag in the air. Final time into corner number 1. Tim Holgate goes to the inside, and Andrew Kinsella does he have the arrow to make it stick through 1 and 2.
Well, here is Kinsella. They're going to stay side by side through turn number 2. This is what we were after. Kinsella keeps the race lead, but Tim Holgate has got 1 more opportunity. Vatty's got 2. The first one into turn number 3. He's going to look to the outside line again as they come down towards that 3rd corner. I would argue that now it's going to be a case of who can get the better run out of turn number 4. Ladies and gentlemen, here it is then. Photo finish time here at the Indianapolis Motor Speedway. Andrew Kinsella is going to win the Apex Infotech Indianapolis 500. Kinsella out of nowhere, Randy.
What a race for Andrew Kinsella. We talked about the strategy throughout the entire middle phase of the race. We said he may have been the driver on the back foot. And we talked about Tim Holgate, how he may have been the favorite. But one slight mistake, one miscalculation with the traffic, and maybe one slight wrong move with the arrow in the final pit stop for Tim Holgate took a win away from him. Andrew Kinsella, right place, right time, one opportunity. He took it. He got the win.
That Clean Tools car, of course. Dan Weldon, different colours, same sponsors. 2005, the cool car, Dario Franchitti, of course. 2 big names in motorsports. Andrew Kinsella wears them today, and he is a victor at the Indianapolis Motor Speedway. And it is for this reason, Randy, that I love this race so much, because lap number 197, we had no idea that Kinsella was going to win. And just like that, all of a sudden, Kinsella wins this motor race. Tim Holgate has the arduous task of talking to us as second place driver.
And that has to be heartbreak if you're Tim Holgate, doesn't it? You have a 1-lap lead with a handful of laps left in the race. If you're Tim Holgate, that is the definition of disaster. There is no worse result, I think. I think if you're Tim Holgate, you would have felt a lot better if you were the second place driver making the move and not being able to make it stick and coming home second. To have such a big advantage to being the clear favorite and then coming up short like that has to be heart-wrenching. Also interesting to note, closest finish in Indianapolis 500 history is 43 1,000ths of a second. This one, 44 1,000ths of a second.
And that, of course, was 2006 with Sam Hornish Jr.
No, 1992.
Sorry, yeah, 1992. I was going to say, the closest one I remember was in 2006 with Sam Hornish Jr. and Marco Andretti, but that was a little bit bigger than a 1992 race. But it's reasons like this. I mean, honestly, Brandon, I stop talking every so often because you've got to savor the fact that we just had a fantastic finish to this event, and a finish we were talking about the hundreds of thousands that Kinsella were trying to gain. That lap traffic proved to be everything, just like 2011. And yes, Holgate didn't hit the wall, but it did cost him the motor race.
Yeah, those last 15 to 20 laps, I was watching the times between Kinsella and Holgate, and Holgate would be a couple hundredths quicker, then Kinsella would be 100 tenths quicker. And that lap car, changed the whole outcome of the race. Without that lap car, Holgate was clear for the win, but he got tight, must hit the wall, brought Kinsella right back in, and we had one hell of a finish.
Well, there's your final race results then here from Indianapolis. Andrew Kinsella sets the fastest lap of the day on lap number 68, and he gets the win here by 44 one-thousandths of a second over Tim Holgate. One of the closest finishes I think we've actually had in iRacing Indianapolis 500 history as well. Adam Dock in third, Christian Steele in fourth, Joe Branch in the fifth position. Bradley Walters, after his late race pit stop, comes home in the sixth position. And then it's Tim Doyle, Tony Schoen, Dan Lient, and Andreas Eek that rounds out your top 10. There's the remainder of the results coming up on your screen. I love Indianapolis. I really do love Indianapolis for moments like this. Like Alexander Rossi winning the 100th edition of the Indianapolis 500. Like Dan Weldon taking the victory in 2011 after J.R. Hildebrand messed up on the final corner. Like Takuma Sato versus Dario Franchitti last lap in 2012. Like all the battles we've seen over the past 100 plus years. What makes Indy fantastic? It's moments like this. We'll be back after these messages.
Get ready, going green. Green, green, green.
The NASCAR Beginner for Series powered by iRacing is the premier NASCAR eSports series featuring the cars and tracks from the Monster Energy NASCAR Cup Series. The 2016 campaign saw a return to the top of the mountain by Ray Alfalla as a three-time NASCAR World Champion. The march to that championship was not easy, though, despite the fact that Ray Alfalla took home the most points in series history. It just also happened to be the tightest championship fight we had ever seen. These guys are set for the 2017 campaign, and as it has been for the 7 years prior, it is no longer going to be a straight shot to the championship. We are going to see the biggest change in this championship picture in series history, as for the first time ever, there will be a chase for the championship. We're going to go into the Homestead Miami Speedway at the end of the season with the 4 best oval sim racing drivers in the world absolutely tied in the championship. You just got to beat the other 3 guys out and you will become an official NASCAR champion. You're going to get yourself a NASCAR championship ring and, of course, $10,000. These are the iRacing eSport World Championships, the pinnacle of sim racing competition. You can catch it all season long, live coverage on iRacing.com/live.
Introducing a whole new form of racing to the best online racing simulation in the world. This is Dirt Racing on iRacing.com. Race online at some of America's most legendary dirt tracks, including Eldora and Williams Grove. iRacing is the premier online racing game featuring NASCAR, IndyCar, sports cars, and now World of Outlaws, the leading sanctioning body for dirt racing. iRacing is easy to use and features a centralized ranking system to make sure you have the best experience at any skill level. With a massive inventory of high-precision laser scan tracks and cars with an unmatched dedication to quality and detail, iRacing gives you the most authentic online racing experience available. Thanks to iRacing's dynamic track system, developed specifically for dirt racing, tracks change over the course of a race, just like your favorite dirt track on a Friday or Saturday night. From a slick racing groove all the way up to the cushion, iRacing's dirt tracks deliver non-stop racing action. Partnered with the World of Outlaws, iRacing is your source for the most authentic dirt racing experience available, featuring 4 brand new tracks and 11 new cars, including street stocks, legends cars, late models, NASCAR trucks, winged and non-winged sprint cars, with much more on the way. Join the Dirt Revolution on iRacing.com and start slinging mud today.
Hashtag I love Indy. And it's for reasons like this. Before we do post-race interviews, let's relive the last couple of moments on board with the driver of Tim Holgate. That, ladies and gentlemen, is the heartbreak of defeat from on board with Tim Holgate. We'll talk to him in a few minutes' time here on RaceSpotTV and on iRacing Live. And well, Randy, we've got to say, that was an amazing end there to this Indianapolis 500.
Finish of the year of all iRacing broadcasts, I think, that we've had. There may have been some better finishes and some leagues, but nothing that means as much as it means to these guys. In terms of big races, nothing's come this close.
Well, we are stood by now with Andrew Kinsella, running on board of him as he did that traditional run to the Yard of Bricks. And well, Andrew Kinsella, congratulations. You are now an iRacing Indianapolis 500 champion. Congratulations.
Thanks, Will. Wow, it's still hard for me to believe.
I mean, it's very easy to talk about the race in its entirety. Let's talk about the last 50 laps, because you were pushing hard. You and Tim Holgate won one strategy. Of course, we had the strategy for Bradley Walters, another one. But you guys seem to have it made, and you had enough to really get yourself to the end of this race without having to make that additional stop. And then it was you versus Tim Holgate, separated by less than a second. And you closed, then he gained it back up. Then you closed, he gained it back up. And then you closed, lap traffic came into play.
Yeah, exactly. And first of all, hats off to Tim Holgate. That was a phenomenal race. He raced me clean the entire time. It was not just at the last bit, but for the whole race, he raced really clean, really good race. So congratulations to him as well. But yeah, I had to come in about 2 laps sooner than Holgate, and Holgate was able to just get that far enough in front of me, and he trimmed out enough that he was just able to maintain that 0.8 to 1 second gap. And no matter what I did, no matter what adjustment I made in the car, I couldn't just break through to that 0.8, because right at about 0.8 in this car, there's the draft sort of falls off, and there's almost like a pocket of air that if you can get past it, you can draft up. But and it was once I got to the actual lapped car and Tim got held up a little bit, I knew that I could come up and race with him, because I've been holding it right there for the whole run.
What happened that moment you saw that Tim Holgate had slowed down and you thought, wait a minute, I'm back in this motor race?
Honestly, the first thing that I did, like, I was just so focused on it, it's like, okay, it's happened, but I need to hit my lines, or else I'm going to waste this opportunity, and I can't waste this opportunity because this is the only shot I've got. So I made sure to just refocus as quickly as possible and hit the lines that I needed to hit to get up and right beside him.
And then you got the pass. The final lap, Holgate goes down to the inside, can't make the move. Holgate goes to the outside, can't make the move. Coming out of turn number 4, tell me your emotions as you went past that Yard of Bricks.
I couldn't believe it. This is only my second full year on iRacing, basically, so it means so much to be able to race with a guy like Holgate, who's been around for so long and is such a good racer. I can't underscore that enough. That it just means so much going down that front stretch and knowing that I had enough speed to make it to the line first.
You've won an Indianapolis 500. I mean, I've never had this opportunity. I know very few people have. Tim Holgate is one of those drivers who have had that opportunity. How does it feel, and who do you want to give thanks to?
It feels absolutely incredible, and I want to thank first and foremost Christian Steele. He and I put in so much time into the set, and we were tweaking right up to the green flag, and he is really the driving force behind the set that we were using today. It sucked that he got the black flag with that weird restart early in that, but he battled back and did a great job. And then I want to thank the rest of Absolute Zero Power Slide. Richard was spotting for Christian. Andreas did a great race. Austin couldn't be here, or else he would have been up in the fight as well. And then just want to thank Apex Infotech for sponsoring the series and allowing us to put on a show like this. It's thanks to them that we're out here, so I wanted to give a shout out to them as well.
I'll tell you one thing, Andrew. I have called many an Indy 500 winner. I don't think there's many as deserving as you. Congratulations on winning the Apex Infotech Indianapolis 500 here today. And Randy, I'll say that again. Really, there are many people who's won in Indianapolis here on iRacing before, won an Indy 500. But Andrew, today, I mean, that was a fantastic run from P number 8 up to first. And he didn't put a foot wrong. And more importantly, he didn't make other people put a foot wrong either.
He ran clean all race long. I mean, of the 3 drivers you could up there for drivers of the race, Andrew Kinsella, Tim Holgate, Bradley Walters, they all drove absolutely perfect races from start to finish. No mistakes for the most part. Well, you might argue for one if you're Tim Holgate, but regardless of the fact, all phenomenal races up and down. And I have to say, for Andrew Kinsella, I know that I've been in a situation in other races in the past, being in that second position, knowing that you're unlikely to catch that guy in the lead coming to the end, and they make a mistake that gives you a chance to capitalize on a moment to get yourself to the front coming to the end. He saw that, he managed to do it, and he did it in such a way that he was able to race cleanly with Holgate. He was defensive, but he wasn't overly defensive. And, you know, it would have been very easy for Andrew to say, get antsy, try to defend a little too hard, and you might be talking that number 99 of Adam Dock being the winner here today.
Tim Holgate is stood by right now. Tim, you've got to be disappointed. You were so close at the end. You tried the inside, you tried the outside, but it just wasn't enough. In hindsight, would you have waited till after turn 4 to make that move?
Well, in hindsight, you know, it's easy to look at things. I think in hindsight, I would have been in 5th gear. We were in 6th gear all the way around, and it wasn't until I was in the short chute where I realized that our 6th gear was really long, and that for a drawn-out drag race down the straight, if I was going to get any kind of side draft, I was going to have to be in the right gear, and that downshift cost us a little bit. I mean, obviously, there's disappointment when you're that close to winning an Indy 500 on iRacing, but I'm obviously ecstatic that, you know, year after year, our team has someone up at the front, and having it be myself in a lot of occasions, you know, that's pretty good. It's pretty gratifying. So, you know, it's really hard to be a winner of this, and it's really hard to be close to winning it. So the fact that we were there within, you know, just a car length is, you know, that's great. And it was great racing. So congratulations to Andrew, and consolidations to Brad, because he had probably the best car, and just the strategy didn't work out for those guys. But yeah, it was one heck of a race. I'm glad we put on a good show for everyone. We had some things go wrong at the end there. Our pit in was a little bit slow. We had a car spin out in front of us, so that probably cost me, I don't know, half a second, and then we ended up with too much fuel. And then we also had the lap traffic there. So, you know, I think all in all, disappointed to not take away the win, but we know we were, you know, because of someone else's bad luck, we were in really good position to win and had some bad luck of our own. But Andrew raced great. We had a great opportunity to win that race and just couldn't get it done at the end.
Now, you've had the opportunity to have both the heartbreak and the emotion of winning in Indianapolis 500. How does it feel this time around? And what's it going to be for you in 2 weeks' time when the iRacing Indianapolis 500 takes place for its 8th time?
You know, having won it, you want to keep winning them. You want to keep seeing your names in lights. You want to keep, you know, keep the streaks going. I was hoping we could get 2 in a row here in the Elite Oval Series. I was hoping last year that we could get 2 in a row with the iRacing Series. So we've got some gaps now. So now is our chance to come back. Very few people get to win back-to-back 500 races. So, you know, the drive is still there. Got my wheel fixed. So we've got, you know, some opportunities to race again. Looking forward to get back into everything. And, you know, this is for the series itself, this was a great championship points haul. Some of our competitors who were in the lead either couldn't make the race or had trouble, so we're going to make a good jump on the points. So we leave here pretty excited, and we're really looking forward to 2 weeks' time. Hoping we can dial the setup in even more, have a better race for the entire team at the iRacing IndyCar 500 in 2 weeks.
Now, who gets it done for you and your team?
So I gotta definitely thank Niles over there, and him and Vic and a couple of the other guys had been working on the setups a few weeks in advance already. So we were able to hit the ground running pretty well with the race setup. I mean, we always have a really good race setup, but Niles got the qualifying setup in a good place. So definitely thanks to them. Got to thank my sponsors. I got to thank Sam Maxwell Customs for putting together an awesome wheel. Hopefully I didn't break it this time. There was a lot of gripping it pretty hard today. Got to thank AccuForce. They actually got my wheel repaired after a couple of attempts. There was something weird wrong in the hub, and they got that all squared away, and it was 100% today for this long race. So congrats to them. Got to thank you guys for putting on these great broadcasts. It makes us feel like we're actual racers, even though we're not. You know, we're getting to pretend. So thanks to all you guys, and then thanks to Joe and Apex for sponsoring the league.
Actually, before we let you go, Tim, we've got to give a shout out to Joe, because, I mean, he didn't place too well here today, but the amount of work that guy does behind the scenes, you know, it's incredible.
Yeah, absolutely. Joe does a great job putting this league together week after week, and he does a lot of prep work to get sponsors and everything in place. So he does a fantastic job. And you know, if it wasn't for him, we wouldn't be having this league this year, because you know 16th Street didn't fire off. So the IndyCar Oval League is the next best thing for IndyCar drivers right now. So it's a fantastic league to race in, and you know, I'm hoping to be here next year.
Well, thank you very much, Tim Holgate, coming home with second place here today, and well, Randy, you've got a feel for Tim Holgate, but on the other hand of that, you've got to think this was a 500-mile prep for 2 weeks' time.
Well, in some ways it was, some ways it wasn't. And keep in mind, these guys still have a championship. So while it might be good to say, okay, if you end up like Bradley Walters, we now know that you can't pit on, say, lap 53 and make it to the end of the race if it goes green. You might get some data going into the race in 2 weeks' time that's very, very worthwhile, but at the same time, you had to come out very well prepared for this race. I'd say up and down the field, everybody did.
Yeah, indeed. So we're going to talk to a couple more drivers here on RaceSpotTV and on iRacing Live. The second that my timing graphic is going to load back up. We're going to talk first to Adam Dock. He comes home in third place. Adam started 10th, finished third. How was your race here today?
Not bad. A little conservative. I had a little mistake there in the first run of the long green flag run. I didn't keep up with my controls and got loose, but my teammate Brandon was already talking about if it goes green from here where we had to pit. So I know that cost Bradley, who was on rails tonight, but it's kind of funny when you're already thinking about fuel mileage that early into the race, but it worked out. I mean, how awesome was that? I mean, the winners, the first and second, were 44 thousandths of a second apart, and me and Christian were only, I think, 16 thousandths of a second apart. I mean, what more is there to say? I mean, that's just awesome racing from everybody.
Yeah, indeed. So you came home third in the end. You are 13 seconds behind, but you did hold off Christian Steele, and that's one thing we haven't really talked about. How close you and Christian Steele were at the end of this motor race.
Yeah, I mean, I definitely think that Christian maybe had a little bit better long-run speed and a little bit just overall speed, but I could keep up with him and keep it fair and honest, and it just came down to the last lap there that I was able to maintain position just enough. And like I said, it's absolute blast when you get to race guys like this, and you can do that and race that close and be that respectful and still have a good time. It's just an awesome feeling.
Now, I've got to be careful here, because I remember the fact we're doing one race, but we've got half an eye on another race that takes place in 13 days' time. The 8th annual Indianapolis 500. What's your thoughts about that? As we head in from a third place finish, you're looking to get replica, get better?
I hope so. If it's a trend, I think in the previous race I finished fourth. I got third tonight, so hopefully it'll be a good omen going into it. Of course, me personally, I always get pumped for the actual Indy 500. So that weekend, I'm usually on cloud 9, packing, getting ready to go to the race. So it's an awesome weekend to have some fun.
Well, you have a fantastic week of May, of course, as we head ourselves towards the real-life Indianapolis 500. Before we let you go, the floor is yours. Who do you want to give a shout-out to?
First and foremost, shout out to Joe and Apex Infotech for putting the series together. Awesome, awesome deal. My teammates, Brandon, Chris, and Paul, working this week, getting the setups dialed in. Just, great team effort.
Well, that's Adam Dock there, finishing home in 3rd place here today. Randy, actually another driver who's done a fantastic job in terms of this event, coming home in the 3rd position.
Adam had a completely flawless. I'd say actually all these drivers that finished up amongst your top 5, even your top 6, drove fantastic races today. Kinsella and Holgate, Doc, who we just spoke to, and then Steele, Branch, and Walters, all the drivers in your top 6, pretty much flawless throughout the entire race. I'd say all are up there. Extraordinarily high quality driving by all 6.
And finally, we're going to talk to Christian Steele, who came home in P number 4 here this evening. Christian, can you hear us?
I think he said he had dinner coming up, so he may have actually stepped away.
Well, unless that dinner's not milk, I don't mind.
Well,
so.
he's still in high school, so hashtag young people problems.
Well, I'll tell you one thing, Randy, and I'm going to bring Cisco back in. Cisco, good news is that we've had a winner. Bad news is you didn't get to see it.
I didn't get to see it, but I did get to catch the final lap there on the other screen, and another just fantastic photo finish, Will. And I mean, are we really surprised? I mean, these guys did it last year. We've seen it so many times on the service, and just is the racing that we get from this DW12 at Indy, and it's fantastic.
Yeah, and I'll tell you one thing, Cisco. It's like, you know, sometimes the community and the people, we have the debate, they have their arguments, and so on and so forth. I mean, I've been a part of it, I've seen it, I know it, I've lived it. But you know what? When it gets to the point of the month of May and the Indianapolis 500, what I love more than anything else is we see some of the best racing in iRacing. Because quite simply, there is nothing that keeps you on the edge of your toes. Martin Cranky versus Gregor Hutu, what you know. Unless it's Silverstone a year ago, you know who's going to win after that final pit stop. Andrew Kinsella, with 10 laps to go, had no chance of winning that motor race, and then boom, there he was. And not only did he have the chance, he took the chance.
Yeah, absolutely. And for that, you know, 1 year ago, came off a restart with 6 laps to go. This year, it was a huge long green flag run to end it off, Will. That's amazing that we can have that close of a finish after 2 completely different scenarios. And, I mean, at the end of the day, not many other cars are going to put on a show like that after a green flag run as long as that was. That's just impressive, and it speaks not only to the quality of the drivers, but the quality of the cars and the quality of the racing.
But Randy, we've got 2 more Indy 500s to go. The next one is in the old-style car. Yeah.
That one's going to be interesting to watch. And, Will, I know we've been talking about this a little bit. I think we talked about it off air. We haven't announced it, but we're not 100% sure yet. Those 2 races have a lot to live up to. That was one of the closest race finishes in RaceSpot iRacing, or in iRacing Indy 500 history. This also, from all the data we can find, myself, Chris Demerit, and actually Adam Dock helped us out a little bit, this seems to be the fastest Indy 500 we've had on the iRacing surface that any of us can find. We can't find a quicker one just yet. There's a couple we're not sure of, but from the looks of things, this is a pretty big contender at a run time of 2 hours, 25 minutes, and 25 seconds.
Very fast Indy 500. The IR05 machine isn't as fast in some ways, it is in others. But also, I saw John Paquin qualifying for that race.
Yeah, John Paquin's one of the most well-rounded drivers in the sim. Seen him quick in Indy cars, seen him quick in GT cars. Used to basically dominate, really, that Targa race at Pocono in the Ford GT. He did that for 2 or 3 years. And he's sort of fallen out of most of the service from most I've seen. I've not actually seen Paquin race in quite a while. Going to be cool to see him hop into that Indy car to the Indy 500.
Yeah, I'm so looking forward to seeing John Paquin make his return. And you know what? If he wins that race by a lap, I wouldn't be too surprised, because that's one thing, Cisco. You know, the classic names like John Paquin, who, if they come in, it's a bit like sitting at Goldberg. You don't care if they win. You just want to see them win. And John Paquin has struggled in big-time Indy 500s over the years.
Yeah, and Will, I mean, we talked about it in the pre-race show about the involvement in the Indy 500 this year. There were a lot of questions going in. A lot of that was silenced after Fernando Alonso decided, hey, you know what? I'm going to run this year. So, look at kind of this international kind of uproar and kind of wanting to get involved with the Indy 500. You know what? I think it's reaching a couple people in iRacing as well. And, you know, being that we're going to have the official race not too far away from the real life thing, a lot of guys are starting to come back into the service. We already saw one driver. He ran a couple laps. He didn't run in the race. But one driver who come back to make a little bit of a return. And, Will, I think, you know, I think the resurgence is at hand. People want IndyCar, and they want it now. Indeed so.
Don't forget, next week it is the Classic IndyCar Series at 5 p.m. GMT. We go old school in the IR05 machine. And the week after that, we will head ourselves over to the DW12 once again for the greatest spectacle in all of sim racing. It's the 8th annual iRacing Indianapolis 500. Don't forget also that you can join ABC, ESPN, Alan Bestwick, Scott Goodyear, and Eddie Cheever for the Grand Prix of Indianapolis next Saturday on ABC in America, qualifying for the Indianapolis 500, and then the running of the 101st Indianapolis 500 on May the 28th. Also, before we go, I want to say one thing, Cisco. Alan Bestwick, I'm going to be so sad that he's leaving ESPN. I'm going off script here a little bit. But you know what? Yes, he did that call with Georgia Tech Miami last year. But I've seen him now do IndyCar racing, college football, college basketball, college hockey. That guy is one of the best commentators I know.
And if there's one thing we've seen is that commentators in IndyCar, they don't go very far. You just take a look at where some of the former commentators are today, Will, and you have to think that Alan Bestwick, wherever he goes, we're going to be watching him because, you know, he's the guy I grew up with, and you have found a lot of inspiration in, and we wish him the best after he leaves ABC at the end of the coverage. But, you know, maybe one day, but maybe one day he'll join us in iRacing. But yeah, nonetheless, it'd be really cool to see where he ends up next, and I really think he's going to end up somewhere special.
And you know what, Randy? It wasn't for me the fact that he called the Indy 500. It's the fact that the first year he called the Indy 500, I had the kind of spot headset on, and I was listening to not what they were saying on it, what they were saying off there. And Adam was so humble. He was like, I want to cover the Indy 500 like a pro, but I need you guys' help. And he was there asking for help. Understand this, he wasn't like some bullshit guy just coming in and saying, I'm the best guy in the world. He was asking for support. And that's what a real commentator does.
Well, that's what everyone needs, isn't it? I mean, I just know from experience, from all my experience here at RaceSpot, know from the limited real-world experience I have, it's not just your ability to call a race and, you know, maybe even lack of better terms, BS your way through some dead air when there's slow moments in the race. It's also how you use the support you get from your fellow commentators, from your producers. I mean, we know it from here from RaceSpot. You got people like Hugo, people like Will. A lot of times they're not on air. They're in the background helping. Every little bit counts, and if you're a commentator, you have to use all of those things to put out the best product you can on air.
But most of all, we want to thank the drivers here today, because this has been another fantastic Indianapolis 500. And yes, it came down to the last 5 laps, but that can only be done by the drivers that take part in this series. Andrew Kinsella not only closed that gap, but was able to win the race. Congratulations to Andrew Kinsella. Congratulations to all the drivers that finished. Andrew Kinsella is an Indy 500 champion. We'll see you all next time here on RaceSpotTV.